What's up, everybody? Going live on Instagram and also Facebook. Fair warning, it is bad weather where I am, so if it glitches or goes out, I will be doing this podcast again because it's very important. I put together a little set of notes here, so it's going to take me a while to go through them, but I think it's very important for where we are right now. A lot of people are looking very, very atrocious, not just libtards, but also a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives, and a lot of patriots looking very atrocious right now. There's already a proven blueprint in place. Now, I know it sounds like advertisement, I get it, but at the same time, somebody has to be the one, all right? These are #1 bestsellers for a reason. This is part 1. This is part 2. You see how thick it is? It's 596 pages, part 2. Alright. Part 1 is 216 pages. Now, you'll hear retards out there. I'm so glad that word has come back into use because that's what some people are looking like right now, are retards. You'll hear retards out there saying that I'm a grifter. Alright, well, if I'm a grifter because I have Billboard country music hits and a book to sell and merchandise, which are what country music artists do, then all country music artists, all music artists are grifters. Alright, and then also all book authors are grifters. That's all I sell. That's all I have. But I'm the only one who has the blueprint in place. The only person. Now, laws and orders are public. But President Trump signed an executive order recently for intellectual property. He said we have to protect all of our smart, intelligent people. So I have the blueprint of this whole operation. So when I see people on my personal pages on top of that, people who befriended me on my personal Facebook and I allowed them to come into my personal life, when I see them posting stuff that's surface level, drama, propaganda, questions that get their people stirred up, and it's all stuff that's already been answered, already in books that outline how President Donald John Trump never went away. You're taking away from him and his sacrifice, his family's sacrifice, what he put his name, brand, and image on, as well as his family, as well as their safety. All right, you're taking away from all of that. You're taking away from the greatest, most biblical, spiritual, biblical, monumental, historical operation known to man. You're taking away from that. The only way this could have been done was via the military. So forget all the military personnel who don't know laws and orders. They can come to learn that. Civilians, you have no excuses. None whatsoever. Zero excuses. There's already a blueprint in place. And President Trump has validated it daily, weekly, and monthly. It's an insult to all veterans, past and present, those who have already passed on, and those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. It is a disgrace that so many Americans are looking so atrocious but also selfish right now. You're a freaking disgrace. There's already a blueprint in place. I'm sorry it just happens to be me. If you got a problem with that, I'm sorry it just happens to be me. But there's already an outlined blueprint that helps so many people find peace, calmness, solace, that what they're watching, it's not to fear. Nothing to fear. So all these people out there still spreading that. You look atrocious. You're not a President Trump supporter. You may be on the fence, but that's the problem. You're on one day, off the next. On one day, off the next. On one day. You don't have to be. You don't have to be whatsoever. It's atrocious. It's a disgrace that we have so many people in this nation claiming to be patriots, claiming to be Republicans, claiming to be conservatives, and look the way they look. Especially these platforms. all these little blue badges out there, when they ask you a question like, what do you think about this? And they just leave it open-ended, or they'll say, do you think World War III has begun? When they do stuff like that, all they want are algorithms and clicks. They know that people will comment on that, and it runs the algorithms up. It makes their posts more visible. That's how they build numbers. You all have to be better than that. There are certain people right now who don't need to be toting the news, toting the weight. They can't tote it. And to all the veterans out there who, it ain't been many of them, but there's been a few who showed resistance to me in the early days. They have their asses so far buried right now, they can't even find their head or their ass. They're so far deep in their holes right now, they can't find their head, their ass. They're in a black hole looking for a way out. They're going to peep out and say, is it safe to come out now? No, it's not safe, because you should have known the whole time. And all you civilians out there that have come after me and said, oh, he trashes veterans. No, I put people in their place when they should know exactly what's going on. You wouldn't go to a mechanic who don't know how to fix your vehicle. Why are they calling themselves a mechanic? If you went in there and you had a flat tire and they changed your air filter and you walked out there and you still had a flat tire and you're like, this is pretty obvious. You don't see a flat tire here? Well, we changed your air filter. You know how stupid that would be to call themselves a mechanic? How can you call yourself a veteran and you don't even know the laws and orders of what you served under? That makes no sense whatsoever. But that's not my problem. And so I don't want veterans to look atrocious. That's why I say, veterans, keep your mouth shut until you read, study, and comprehend. And if you can't comprehend, it's probably why you went into infantry. Sorry for all the good infantry who went into infantry for other reasons. But veterans, we have a way of speaking with each other. Military, we have a way of speaking with each other. You civilians that didn't serve, you have no reason to be barking whatsoever. Especially those who have trashed me. You have no reason to be barking whatsoever. You leave that to us veterans. Alright, if a veteran has an issue with me, they'll come to me. Not a single one has come to me. Not a single one. And the more this goes, it's already so obvious at this point for the people who have read, studied, and comprehend. It's so obvious at this point. I wouldn't have #1 best-selling books as an independent writer, no ghostwriter, independent, no publisher, if it weren't for the material that's already outlines what's going on. And President Trump validates it daily. And this book, Part 1, went in print December 2023, but it stems off of what they call the documents that I had put in documents, published January 2021. I didn't go viral until August 24, 2022. So these all stem from stuff I had already written way back here on Google hard drives. So timestamps don't lie. And those books, right now, the people who are reading them, but people who bought them way back, it's already outlining what's going on right now as we speak. All special operations, all unconventional warfare, clandestine, covert operations. Clandestine and covert are secret until they want you to know about it. And they're letting you know about things daily. So let's address, let me get my notes here while I stay on track. Let's address why the libtards look so atrocious calling President Trump a king. Alright, this is why they look atrocious. Alright, and also this is why, again, 60 veterans stormed the Capitol yesterday looking like dumb, idiotic morons. They probably have the lowest ABSAP scores known to man. So being a veteran doesn't mean you automatically are a good person, innocent, integrity, honesty, loyalty, service. It doesn't mean any of that. A lot of people have used the service, gone into service to get that title and come out and use it to their benefit in multiple cases. That's not what service is about. Service to this nation is for this nation. When you take an oath to the United States Constitution, it tells you exactly what you're taking an oath to. And the oath has changed through the years. You should probably go check out the oath when it was established. Guess what day the oath was established? June the 14th, 1775. And you only took an oath for a year. So look at all those people out there trying to trash me for not serving for 10 or 12 and 15 and 20 years, which was not my problem. The original Constitution, well, the original oath to the Constitution was a year. Now, I served longer than a year, but it's just the point that so many people are so jealous and ignorant, and they look atrocious. And it's only going to come back on you. Anyone who's vocal out there, it's going to come back on you. And your friends and your family, especially those who witnessed it, they're going to remember. They're going to remember that you didn't know, you never knew, and you also trashed people who did know and who have been trying to lead people the correct way. They're going to remember. I don't want you to look like an idiot, but if you want to, that's on you, boo-boo. Keep looking like an idiot. Or you can apologize, especially if you come after me. You can apologize and come back and say, look, man, I want to be on the good team. All right. Show some integrity. The laws and orders all outline what they outline. They're not unlawful. If they were unlawful, they shouldn't be in law. That's how that works. All right, so the veterans who stormed the Capitol, stupid. You're going to jail. You're going to jail for something that you don't even know about. That's how dumb you're going to look. On your record, you're going to have forever in your record, especially if you're a veteran out there, whoever did that, those 60 are going to have on their record that they stormed the Capitol and they didn't even know the laws and the orders of what they served under. Ooh, that's pretty bad. Pretty bad right there. So, all these liberals calling President Trump a king, no king, no king, and then all these people out there who keep surface level propaganda and drama going, this is what they're missing. Alright? And we're going to do a timeline here for the idiot libtard retards out there. Alright? The Revolutionary War. Alright? It's set aside and it carved out the most unique nation known to man. The whole reason we're sitting here having this conversation on this podcast, the whole reason we're here, the whole reason everything is taking place right now is because of those founders and what they carved out. Liberals couldn't be any more of a foreign agent that all need to be deported right now. And a lot of Republicans are looking the same way. So if you really love President Trump and you support President Trump and you love our military and support our military, you probably need to shut up for a little while and learn a little bit where you don't look like and replicate these libtard retards out there. They couldn't look any more worse than a terrorist. They look the same. Alright, so here's the Revolutionary War timeline. Alright, I named the book The Midnight Rider Rides Again after Paul Revere. He made the midnight ride in the middle of April 18th and 19th into that morning. Alright, midnight, as it says. Our founders kicked off the war at Battle of Lexington and Concord on April the 19th, 1775. Our founders did everything backwards, which is what makes it so unique and so cool that they kicked off the war, alright, April 19th, 1775. It's simple math. So you got to go April, May, June. So 2 months later, they established the United States Army, which we just celebrated our 250th birthday yesterday. Alright. June 14th, 1775. War Articles. The first military law came June 30th, 1775. 16 days after the Army. Let me do the math again. Let's see. 1775, 1776, 1777, 1778, 1779, 1780, 1781, 1782, 1783, 1784, 1785, 1786, 1787. Man. So our first branch and military law was 12 years before the Constitution. That's how stupid a liberal looks. They never talk about our founders. They never talk about the literature surrounding the Constitution. Never talk about it. They never talk about the Declaration of Independence. They never talk about the Federalist Papers. They never talk about any of the literature that supports our founders. We have enough literature, especially with the Federalist Papers. We have enough literature to prove what our founders were thinking, why they were thinking it, how they were thinking it, and why they established what they established. October 13th, Continental Navy. November the 10th, Continental Marine Corps. December the 3rd, the first flag, the Union Jack flag. 1775. All this came before the Declaration and the Constitution. That's how stupid a liberal is. And you have to use the term stupid. I mean, it's one thing to be ignorant. Ignorant, you can use that term a lot of times, but ignorance can be educated if you're willing to be educated. Liberals are in a reprobate mind. They're in a reprobate mind. You can't tell them anything. Can't tell them anything. Then our founders declared independence 7 years before the war ended. They did everything backwards. They didn't go out there and kick the ass of the British and then, well, here we go. Let's sign it, boys. We're finished with this war. Let's sign right here. We declare independence. We kick the British's ass. Here we go. No! They declared independence 7 years before the war ended and went right back on the battlefield. It's amazing. Then, Articles of Confederation, first Constitution, it was focused more on like a weak, centralized government. All right. Then, when the war ended, they sat down and they thought, well, we could redraft this, add to it, but they scrapped it and they rewrote the Constitution. James Madison, the main author, father of the Constitution. All right. Nowhere will you find the word democracy mentioned in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or the Declaration of Independence. There's one time the word democracy appears in our founders, and I'm going to read it for you. Let me find where it went here. Democracy was mentioned in Federalist Paper number 10. And we'll read it right here. Guess who it was written by? James Madison, the father of the Constitution. The man who had to go in 16 years after he wrote the Constitution. He had to go into the Supreme Court and clarify what a law looked like in the famous landslide and landmark case, Marbury versus Madison, which says a law repugnant to the Constitution is void. Federalist Paper number 10, written by James Madison. Guess what it says? It's the most famous of the Federalist Papers. It is where the word democracy appears. Madison discusses the potential dangers of a pure democracy where citizens directly participate in the government. Woo! That's how dumb a liberal looks. All right. Now, let's read the Declaration of Independence. You never hear a liberal mention the Declaration of Independence, ever. They never reference the Declaration. liberals quoting the Constitution, they don't ever quote the Constitution. They just say the word Constitution. They don't know anything about the Constitution. But a liberal trying to use the Constitution as their foundation to stand on is the dumbest thing they could possibly do. The Constitution was not written for us to stand on. It was written for us to keep our representatives in check, saying, hey, that's not what we want. That's not what we voted you in for. You're representing us, and this is what we want in law. And that's where, throughout history, the judicial branch took over, started dictating. Congress started dictating, started writing the laws, and lawmakers. Because why? People got lazy, people quit reading, and people quit having the passion like I have, when everybody needs to have the same passion. Because not all of us can pull the weight all the time. You got to pull it everywhere in all your states. You have to. So, let's read the Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands, right out the gate, political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. So straight out the gate, when liberals say our nation wasn't founded on God, our founders put it in Declaration of Independence. They put their God. They put our God. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established shall not be changed for light or transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. That's exactly what is taking place right now. Therefore, Republicans and conservatives and patriots who are still following all these surface level propaganda drama, little pushers out there stirring up all this stuff, when there is an absolute blueprint in place by the United States military, all right, special operations in which President Trump shows daily in his hand symbols that is not Illuminati. Anyone who says that's Illuminati should also be deported and slapped upside the head while they're being deported. It's an operation. And forever just commenting on the comment that I'm taking it out on you, get the hell off my page. That's what you can do. This is what needs to happen in this nation. We have too many people right now, where we are, June the 15th, 2025, who have their heads so far up their asses, they can give themselves a tonsillectomy. This is pathetic where we are. For this many people claiming to be Republicans, claiming to be conservatives, and claiming to be patriots, where we are right now, when they claim to support and love President Donald John Trump, who sacrificed his whole name, brand, image, likeness, and his family, it's a disgrace. It's such a pure atrocity where we are right now that so many people look this atrocious. And coming on the comment box, you just want to get a comment in there. You just got to comment. No one wants to listen. No one wants to study. No one wants to apply out there in the bigger world. And you don't want to listen to the good followers here who are trying to help you out, telling you to shut up and listen. How did we get here? How did we get to this place where so many Americans are this lazy, this incompetent, and this stupid? How? How did we get here? How do you claim to love a man and support a man and you don't even want to know what he's working with? You think he's just firing off at the hip, waking up? Well, what do you want to do today, guys? What do you want to do, ladies? You need to know, because liberals out there are calling this man a king. Those are the people who protest more. They will at least get off their asses and get out there on the streets. Even though they look stupid, they will work you all day long. They will outwork a patriot. You all, a lot of you just want President Trump to spoon feed everything. A lot of you patriots out there just kick back. Oh, finally got my guy back in. You prove what happened the last 60 years, really more than that, but you prove what happened with bureaucracy. Because people are lazy and don't want to know the laws, don't want to know the orders. You think that a lawyer can only know the laws. You think that only high-ranking people in the military can know it. You are the problem. You're the problem. Then you want to trash liberals. I can trash liberals because they look stupid by law. But when you don't know the law, you look atrocious. You look just as worse as them. And at least they'll get off their lazy asses and turn the TV off and not play golf on Saturday. And they will go down there and stand at a courthouse and look stupid. That's what you're supposed to look like, but you're supposed to know what's going on. And you can know what's going on. God! How did we get so stupid in this nation? You'll listen to everybody and anybody. You'll go watch tens of millions of podcasts. You don't need tens of millions. You need someone who knows exactly what's going on. And it's already there. The people who are watching my pages and reading these books, it's daily. President Trump, daily. Daily at this point. Daily. It's already there. It's already outlined. You don't need any new podcasters. You don't need anything in your life. You don't need Fox News, OAN, Newsmax. None of these people. All OAN, Fox News, and Newsmax do anyways, like your grandma. When your grandma was cooking, and she has this big old bowl of pudding or whatever she was making, a cake batter, and she finished stirring it up, and she hands you the spoon and says, "You want to lick the spoon, honey?" And you go, "Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah." Well, you get to lick the spoon. Here's what Fox News and Newsmax and OAN and all these other blue badge idiots that don't know what's going on, claiming to be President Trump supporters, they hand you the little spoon and you go, "Oh gosh, this is good, I want more of it." They don't ever show you anything. They don't lead you to the water. They don't know how to take the fire. They don't know how to do that. All they do is just throw you a crumb. "Come on back tomorrow, I'll give you another crumb. Might be a little smaller tomorrow though, because I got to keep you hanging on." That's what's wrong with America. Right there. And comments like that. I prove daily I don't need followers. I don't want followers. This is not about followers. This is about keeping an oath and knowing that oath. It says, "I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I will obey the orders of the whom? Who, liberals? Where you at, libtards? Where you at, you stupid morons? You guys give up, or you thirsty for more?" Best line in Home Alone ever. You guys give up, or you thirsty for more? Where you at, liberals? "I will obey the orders of the president and the officers appointed over me according to" what? "The Uniform Code of Military Justice." That's Title 10. Title 10, presidential authority. Everything in place right now is under Title 10. All of us veterans, raise our right hand. Title 10, Section 502. You can't have one portion of Title 10 without the other portion of Title 10. And even some of the orders that are under Title 32, doesn't matter, still presidential. If you think a governor has full control of the National Guard, we'd have had a power-tripping governor by now. This is why it's important. You got to be passionate about this stuff. And then like this week, I'm on this podcast, right? And it makes me look like the bad guy. Here's a constitutional attorney and a veteran who don't even know what is currently invoked right now. Currently invoked by the United States President, Donald John Trump, who is a supreme commander, wartime president. It's not just a president. And you can't pick this up one day, put it down the next. Pick it up one day, put it down the next. Pick it up one day, put it down the next. There is a clear blueprint in place. You got to study every single intricate law, every single intricate order, and see the shell of it. And that's what a lot of Americans are doing. And they're claiming to get frustrated, but you're getting frustrated if this is you, whoever you are. If you're getting frustrated, then you're frustrated because you're just picking it up one day, putting it down the next. Picking it up one day, putting it down the next. You're going over to this podcast, you're going over to that podcast. You're going to this podcast, you're going to this TV show. You're going to this TV guy, you're going to this. That is the operation. 45 started it. The dash was in the middle. 47. Don't worry about 48 yet, even though President Trump's already saying Trump 2028. Don't even need to worry about that. All these people, oh, that's got to be Eric. That's got to be Eric. You might want to calm down, sassy britches. You might want to calm down. It might not be Eric. The Constitution only says a president to serve 4 years in a term. It never specified that the Congress was to put term limits on the president. Nowhere. So if you love the Constitution, believe the Constitution, same thing with the word democracy. Nowhere in our founders' writing, except for Federalist Paper number 10 and James Madison, where he says a democracy is dangerous. And he's the father of the Constitution. And you got libtards out there saying that we're a democracy. We're not a democracy. And when President Trump uses the term democracy, it's a special operation. He says, I'm the closest thing to, the democracy they've ever had. And he's talking about he's destroying it. They're destroying it. He's using everything against them. It's a special operation. This is a unique set of laws and orders. And that's the spearhead that uses like that. You flip it upside down. This is it's special operations for a reason. You have the term special for a reason. All right? Not special like the libtards. They're a different kind of special. All right? So that's why you Republicans and you conservatives and you patriots don't want to look a special kind of special either. All right? You don't want to look like that. You don't want to look like what's eating Gilbert Grape. All right? You don't want to look like that. There's no way President Trump did this as a regular president. There's no way. There's no way whatsoever. No way. Whew. I got a woo-saw for a moment. January the 20th, 2017, President Trump had 2 officers walk down behind him. Military. First time in history. You saw a military intelligence headband and Judge Advocate General, JAG. Very, very powerful image. He said, and at the moment they walked down behind him, he said, we're taking the power out of D.C. and we're giving it back to you, the people. Why do you support a man if you don't listen to him? Why do you claim to support a man if you don't want to apply what he's using? If he did not have a military backing him, the whole military and the generals, the liberals would have an excellent point. Hear me out. If he didn't have a military backing him, and he didn't have laws and orders backing him, from a special military way of suspending the Constitution, but also certain things that allow the military to move in on civil operations, they would have an excellent point. But they don't. Therefore, you Republicans, you conservatives, and you patriots have got to get tough, and you got to put down all this other stuff. And you can't look like people just wanting to get a comment in the comment box. You need to put all this stuff aside, sit down and look at the blueprint in place. And you got to put credit where it's due. There's so many people out there, what they're going to do is like the Mark Twain quote. A lot of these blue badges out there have already stolen information. It's all intellectual property. But also, most of them aren't veterans. So they're trying to take credit away from veterans. Forget about the veterans who don't know what's going on, and it's only been a few who've commented. And again, they're so far in a hole right now you can't find them because they were so wrong 2 and 3 years ago. If they'd have kept their mouth shut, they wouldn't look so atrocious right now and had to delete some of their comments, which I screenshot, and I have. So, tough titty, said the kitty. All right. And there's going to be a walk of shame when this is all said and done, and I'm not going to let you live down. So, that's just me. So when you look at Joint Publication 3-57, it says specifically in there, it says that generally you don't want Title 10, Department of Defense, regular forces to operate in civilian. Unless, see, this is why the ladies follow me more than males do. Because words matter. Terminology matters. Punctuation matters. Punctuation matters. That dash right there means through. It's always meant through. 45 through 47. If you think President Trump slipped up and messed up on a dash, if he was just 45 and 47, it should be a comma or it should be a little and symbol. That in punctuation all these years means through. And if it didn't have a good meaning, he put that on there April the 2nd, 2023. So I'm going to pull up something here and read it to you. And I'm going to read another before we get going. But on the 2016 Special Operations Pocket Guide, Unconventional Warfare, all right, where it talks about your government in exile, it talks about shadow government, it has all the key tie-ins to what's going on currently. It has a pyramid in there I've told you about on multiple podcasts. There's a pyramid on page 11. All right, page 11 on the PDF, and it's page 9 on the actual document itself. So on page 10 on the PDF, but page 8 on the document itself of Unconventional Warfare, and I'm going to tie all this in again, but in a different kind of manner tonight. It specifically says this: most or all of the represented activities will be conducted by a successful resistance or insurgency regardless, listen, regardless of whether the United States government makes the policy decision to support it. United States government support to resistance, unconventional warfare, is initiated by either a presidential finding or an executive order. This is your 2016 Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide, Special Operations Command. Where was President Trump just a few days ago? Fort Bragg. What is it known for? The John Fitzgerald Kennedy Special Operations Warfare Center. Wearing a ball cap with a spearhead, the tip of the spear on the side of it. The very front page of this 2016 Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide, Special Operations Command. The spearhead. This little bad boy right here. Look at all those people out there, Republicans, conservatives, calling that Illuminati. And even worse, calling it Space Force. Come on, man. Don't hurt the Army's feelings like that. Oh, man. All right, so go back to the Joint Publication 3-57. When you hear people out there about posse comitatus and insurrection act and all that, throw that out the window. There's already an order in place. It's already an order in place. You've heard me say it like a broken record. Over and 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 over again. You even had some rhinos out there. President Trump, let me excerpt something really fast. How is it that President Trump can give a rhino Republican a nickname and Republicans still follow the rhino? Do you not understand the draining of the swamp? Did you not listen to President Trump when he said not a single person from my first administration will be with me on the final ride out? But how is it that people still support these rhinos? How? Sloppy Steve. I mean, you can't. If you were given the nickname Sloppy, and that's the very guy who President Trump has been bashing, this author that Sloppy Steve led in the White House, who's written all these books about President Trump that are false. And President Trump said Sloppy Steve had nothing to do with my presidency. All he is selfish and wants to sell books of his own. And his quote-unquote minions that are all up under him attacking me. Say, one of them so dumb, this person could lay on the diving board, all right, flat on the diving board. They could take a bottle of water, all right. They could take a bottle of water and lay flat on the diving board. And when they got up from there, it would look like they pissed themselves. That's how dumb this person is. Saying that Title 50, Chapter 33, is not the War Powers Act. Title 50 is War and National Defense Booklet. Chapter 33 of Title 50 is the War Powers Act. .gov. All right, all congressional, all legislative. This person, that's how dumb these Republicans and conservatives are. That's how selfish they are. That's how bad that they want to be the ones in the limelight. That's how bad this is right now. And it's all there. It's all there. It's already, that is the very key order in place. So you got to take Joint Publication 3-57 where it specifically says, generally, no, you don't want the United States regular forces, Title 10, your Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Space Force. No, you don't want them. Generally. That's why words matter. Generally, you don't want Title 10 forces in civil operations. Unless the Constitution or Congress deems so. Well, watch this. So, if you go back and get on your little Google and you say, hey, who had say it this way. Who had control of the House and the Senate from 2019 to 2021? Democrats had control of the House of Representatives, and the Republicans had control of the Senate. Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 was not there until December the 20th, 2019. That's when it was amended to the War Powers Act of 1973. The last amendment to this date, as we speak, is that Section 1550. You know who introduced that bill? Because the Senate can introduce certain things to be passed from the Senate, then back to the House. But guess who introduced this bill? This order. It's not even a bill, it's an order. The House of Representatives. Now, why would a Democrat House of Representatives introduce a war order with President Donald John Trump? And it passed because the Democratic House introduced it, so you knew the Senate, all Republican, was going to pass it. What in the heck? Think about it. The Democratic House introduced Section 1550, which is the very key war order in place right now. And every order after that, that President Trump put into place, All the war orders. So December the 20th, 2019, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, it says every 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter, the President shall report to the Congress, the defense committees, the use of regular and irregular forces. Irregular, there's your special operations, there's your clandestine, there's your covert operations. Executive Order 13912 came 4 days after the mainstream media were talking about, oh, Donald Trump's going to terminate the Constitution. He's going to terminate the Constitution. You don't terminate the Constitution. The legislative branch suspends the Constitution, not the executive branch. Article 1 is the legislative branch. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. That's why liberals look so dumb. Republicans, conservatives, patriots, you don't want to replicate them. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2, legislative branch. They are the ones who suspend the Constitution. That chatter was started up all over mainstream media. Then, on March 23rd, 2020, you had mainstream articles out there saying what? President Trump's to install a general just in case the law breaks down. One, you don't install a general. They're already there by rank. That is pretty humorous right there for any person to believe that. They're already there by rank. All right, that would be the most craziest insult known to man. All right, to install a general. All right, oh, we can just go out there on the street and go, hey, we got someone here that's more qualified than all these generals over here. They've never been in service before. But you know what? They're a keyboard warrior. They're always on there all the time. They're talking about this, this, and this. They're always stealing information from someone that really knows. Let's get them. March 27th, 2020. Oh, let's go back. Number 2 on that. I've always wanted to add this on there. If law breaks down, so they're telling you federal law, right? Because that's traditionally your president, executive branch, legislative branch, judicial branch. If the law breaks down, they're telling you right there. So that's federal. So you have military law came first in this nation. All right. So then, Executive Order 13912, President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components to active duty. Title 10, Section 12302. There's your Title 10. There's your presidential authority right there. So Congress put the 1550 in there, and here's the president. It's a double. It's not a dictator. It's not an authoritarian or anything like that. That's how stupid these people are. It was a Democrat House who introduced the war order. Then, April the 1st, 2020, Southern Command and 22 joint partners launched an operation for all drug trafficking. That's still ongoing. All the time you see all these drug busts. Now, they had them in the past, sure. You're going to have someone out there say, we've always had drug busts. Not at this level. Not at this level. You got to see what they've done and increased at this level. All right. April 30th, 2020. Executive Order 13919. President Trump direct order to the Secretary of Defense. Equal the authority to federalize the selected reserve to active duty. July the 1st, he ended NAFTA. Created or established the USMCA, the Canadian-Mexican Trade Agreement. Huge deal. Very huge deal. That already shows Mexico and Canada are on board right there. And everything else you've been seeing with Canada and Mexico is all pre-planned, all part of the smoke and mirrors and everything. Canadian aircraft in and out of here every day, and Mexican military. All right. Then you had August 28, 2020, that congressional report. Remember that little clause that said to report to? Well, August 28, 2020, congressional report. It's titled Military Justice Act of 2016. Well, the Military Justice Act of 2016 was signed May 2016. It was passed in the 2017 National Defense Authorization Act, which is the defense budget. All right, that was handed to President Trump in his defense budget. Well, the Supreme Court, out of nowhere in 2016, not President Trump, Obama was president, not President Trump's nominees, the Obama Supreme Court, even though that ain't how they're supposed to work, but it was the Supreme Court under Obama, they out of nowhere clarified that military courts and military laws are separate from federal courts and federal laws. And here, August 28, 2020, there's a congressional report. And it's titled Military Justice Act. August 28, 2020 is exactly 180 business days from December the 20th, 2019. What did the clause say again in there? It says, in the first 180 days, and every 180 days thereafter. So, when you go look at the Abraham Accords, September 2020, peace in the Middle East. That was UAE and Israel making a deal, and a few other countries came on board. All those nations have been in and out of the United States military over the last 3 and 4 years. All the time. And they're all landed on reserve basis and National Guard basis. There's been a few on regular military basis, but the majority of them, 99% of them, reserves, National Guard. Reserve, National Guard. Alright. Then, you had Executive Order 13961, December the 7th, 2020. That's the invocation by President Donald John Trump, wartime president though, the invocation of continuity of government. Federal Mission Resilient Strategy is what he titled it. But when you go read that executive order, it talks about the continuity of government and the continuity of operations. 3 days later, he signed Executive Order 13963. It is the most recent and the last, or flip that around, it's the last but most recent order of succession within the Department of Defense. Every other president had an order of succession within the Department of Defense except for Joe Biden. 3 weeks later, January the 1st, 2021, publication comes out, FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. It's titled Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. Well, reconstitution means to take something and put it back into its original state. So they're telling you right there that the executive branch has not been in its original state. Reconstitution. All right. Well, January the 17th, 2017, 3 days before the famous speech and the military walking down behind President Trump, we're going to take the power out of D.C., give it back to you people. 3 days before that, Federal Continuity Directive 1 was reissued. Continuity government. The overall shell. June 13, 2017, Federal Continuity Directive 2 was published. It's the implementation of it. They're very long to read, but you got to go read them. All right, but that applies to your continuity governments. When you have a continuity government, as President Eisenhower established, he's the one who established the continuity government. All right, when you have a continuity government, you have these things called Presidential Emergency Action Documents, PEDs for short. All right, they're pre-planned, they're pre-drafted. But there's 4 ways the military pairs with federal. Executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. You know what the 4 components are of a presidential emergency action document? Executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. Go back to Special Operations Command booklet again. What did it say? It said specifically, let me find it. Most or all of the represented activities will be conducted by successful resistance or insurgency regardless of whether the United States government makes the policy decision to support it. United States government support to resistance, unconventional warfare, is initiated by either a presidential finding or an executive order. President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components. Reserves. He went with the reserves straight out the gate. He didn't go with the regular military. He went with the reserves straight out the gate. Your executive orders under that War Powers Act. That War Powers Act is exactly what it says. The War Powers Act. That was a declaration of war. But President Trump put us in a defense mode the way the founders, but also all the founders all the way up to Eisenhower established it, where you put us in a defense mode and we protect our own turf. That's why President Trump's taken shots recently, and he said, I like this guy. I nominated this guy. He probably could be on the offense kind of guy, but he's a defensive strategy guy. President Trump's taking shots at all the deep state, the bureaucracy. These people used these laws and orders, and they kept passing down, they kept handing off the torch to every president with a national emergency. So when Carter got done declaring national emergencies, he passed it off. And when another president would declare a national emergency, they passed it off. Wasn't supposed to do that. And we're going to get to the oldest national emergency that's right now and explain that. It was never supposed to be passed off like that. A national emergency after 2 years is not an emergency anymore. And a national emergency that's gone for 40 years is not an emergency anymore. That's bureaucracy. They lied to you. They confused you. They tricked all of you. They brainwashed all of you, and they controlled you. They psyoped you. Now we're running a counter psyop. This is exactly what it is. And you hear all these people out there trying to talk about it who aren't military. They need to shut up and stand down to people who are military. And it ain't a bunch of us, but again, that's not my problem and all the commanders that I know. That's not our problem that so many people are lazy and uneducated and don't have the capacity to put all this in a big, massive blueprint. But guess what? There are commanders who wrote these publications. I know some of them. You see them. The guys who forwarded these books, they have written these massive publications that are out in our military. Somebody has to do it, and some of us are capable of that. That's why it pays to pay attention and be careful who you follow. All right? There is a blueprint in place. You don't need anything else. It is already there. You don't need a thing else. And quit worrying about all the idiots out there. All the ones that say, oh, he didn't serve long enough. It doesn't matter. The oath never expires. They look atrocious for not continuing their service. January the 6th, all of a sudden 60 idiot veterans stormed the Capitol yesterday on June 14th, and they just canceled out January the 6th. They canceled all the libtards and all their bullcrap, even though January the 6th, 2021 wasn't what anybody thought. 2 objections happened. The first time in U.S. history during the certification count, 2 objections took place. And even though I know it's an operation, but for the people who don't, you witness history. All right, 2 objections took place. Title 3, Section 15 describes what has to happen when there are objections. They're supposed to stop the vote count. Stop it. Don't move forward. They go into a special chamber to sort out what took place in those objections. We already have it in our Constitution. What is to take place? It's there. That did not happen. Conveniently, what the libtards call an insurrection, conveniently, out of nowhere, immediately after those 2 objections, boom! The quote-unquote insurrection. All planned. All strategic. All right? Then, when the smoke cleared, you saw Nancy Pelosi, it was so frightening. It don't matter how frightening it was if it was real. It don't matter if it was real. It don't matter. Going from California to Wyoming and certifying the count and never finding out the discrepancies with Arizona, even though I know this is all planned, but for the people who don't, once again, they broke all kinds of codes from Title 18. So Title 18 is your federal crimes. Federal crimes and criminal procedures. Title 18, Section 2381, 2384, 2385. They also broke Title 3, Section 15, which is your very codification for what happens with objections. And then they also broke 52 U.S. Code 20511. All right, just to start off with. We could probably apply a few more, but that's what the whole world witnessed that day. That's how dumb a liberal is. They use the term Constitution all the time. They know nothing about the United States Constitution. They don't know anything about the literature. They don't know anything about the literature around it. That's how the Republicans, conservatives, patriots. You don't want to look like a liberal. There's a blueprint in place. It's already there. It's already been proven. It's already been validated. You don't have to keep searching for something that's already there. Then January the 20th, that's what made January the 20th. So you got to go back to January the 1st. They're saying a reconstitution of the executive branch. Meaning it's not in its original state. So what you witnessed from 2017 to 2021 was a resetting of the legislative branch. All these unique laws and orders went into place. And Democrats were part of it as well. That's what they made visually happen. That the Democrats introduced the war order in the House and it was passed in Section 1550. So they showed you all these unique laws and orders, and it is not just President Trump acting alone. It's not just President Trump and the generals acting alone. Been saying this forever. It's all strategically planned. It's also to break up all this bureaucracy. The government was never supposed to look like this. It wasn't supposed to be this kind of bickering and arguing and hatred and all this other stuff. It was never supposed to look like this. Republicans and Democrats, if it stays that way, are supposed to work together as closely as possible. It was never supposed to look like this. So that's why they showed you January the 20th. For people who were paying attention then, I wasn't the only one, but I was the one that caught every intricate detail. All right, and that's what made my video go viral. If you go back and watch the rant from August 24, 2022, it's on my Rumble. All right, if you go on there, it's there. That's what made me go viral. So I said, look, this is what you witnessed by law. This is what you saw. One, no motorcade. So it wasn't even real, but for the people that thought it was, the National Guard did not salute the motorcade. They turned their backs on it. All right, all the uniforms were jacked up. All right, so there's that. You saw this time unison. Even though they were using older uniforms as well, every time they showed President Trump with the uniform, everything's in unison. All the uniforms around Joe were all jacked up, all mismatched, etc. All different kinds of patterns together. That is not how the military operates or functions. All right, he raised his right hand at 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is a violation of the 20th Amendment of the Constitution. Again, every other president swears in at 12:01 to 12:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, except for quote-unquote Joe, 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Violation of the Constitution right out the gate. So there's another thing, the libtards, they look so stupid. You have to use the term stupid. So therefore, again, Republicans, conservatives, patriots, you don't want to look the same way. All right. Then you had Amazing Grace. All right. It's a funeral song. All right. There's that. Then you had the cannons. Right. So you had three cannons. First time in U.S. history that two different sets of cannons were shown. First time in U.S. history, two different sets of cannons were shown on Inauguration Day. All right. That is showing you right out the gate that, oh, there's three cannons here and there's four cannons here. Well, you probably want to know the Army. All right, it's the Presidential Salute Battery, the official Presidential Salute Battery. They're known as the Old Guard. All right, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the oldest unit in the United States Army. The oldest, 1784. A year after the war ended, this unit was established, the Revolutionary War. So they show you two different sets of cannons the first time. Well, you heard Pete Hegseth said that we're going to be fit, not fat. Well, I'm not fat shaming, but if you take it that way, well, you're just probably a sore loser or a sissy liberal deep down. Because there were fat soldiers shown for quote-unquote Joe on January the 20th, 2021. They were all moving around in formation, moving around, every one of them completely different. No way. That is not military bearing, for one. Two, that's not the official Presidential Salute Battery that would be doing that. They are so finesse in their movement, it's insane. They're mortar men. They're not artillery men. This is all they do. There was not a commissioned officer present. That's Army Regulation 600-25 2-3 cannon salutes. All right? There wasn't a commissioned officer present there. There's that. President Trump had 4 cannons at Joint Base Andrews. Red carpet rollout, hail to the chief. No other presidents had that done before on a farewell. 4 cannons, by definition, is a 21-gun salute. It is so atrocious that we have had people try to argue with me before. When you go to Arlington National Cemetery.mil, and it tells you specifically that the 3 cannon, the 3 volley salute, rifle or cannon, 3 volley salute seen or heard at Arlington is not to be confused with a 21-gun salute. The 3 volley is a funeral. That's how dumb Americans have gotten. That they will absolutely argue with facts that I didn't make up. It wasn't like I wrote this. It's not like To Kill a Mockingbird and you just don't like the book To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, this is stuff that's been written and the same with laws and orders. You don't have to like them, but that's what they are. But when you say it's unconstitutional or it's this or it's that, not a single person who has been resistant towards me have taken all the laws and orders, all of them, and shown how they don't mean what they most certainly mean. Because they most certainly mean what they mean. That's how the law works. So let's go back really quick, moving through here, to Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. I've done this before, where you scroll down to the bottom, the very bottom of it, on uscode.house.gov. It says Executive Documents. I've done this before and we'll do it again, just to make liberals, to for sure put them in their place, because they're absolutely atrocious. Delegation of authority under Section 1285 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2020. Memorandum of President, doesn't say of the President, it says Memorandum of President of the United States, July 19, 2021, provided. Now let's do our math here. If Joe Biden was President, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 7 months, give or take, this is what was happening if Joe was real. I know he wasn't, but for the people who does, this proves even more to them that he's not real. He was never real, and he was never president by laws and orders. Memorandum for the Secretary of Defense. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 301 of Title III United States Code, I hereby delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President by Section 1285A through E of public law. I love the word public. If you ever watched the comedian, I can't think of his name right now. What's his name? Ron. Let's see. Comedian. Let me look him up. Ron White. Cannot think of that. Save my life. Ron White said, I was in a bar, drunk where I wanted to be. And then I got kicked out in the streets, and a police officer tried to arrest me for being drunk in public. And he told the officer, I don't want to be drunk in public. I want to be drunk in a bar. All right. Again, I hereby delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President by Section 1285A through E of public law on the use of military force and support of partner forces to the Congress. Well, guess what? Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 already says what? That the President is to report to the whom? Congress, defense committees, after the use of regular or irregular forces. And guess what it's titled up here? Section 1550, reports and briefings on use of military force and support of partner forces. Now let's go back down here and what is this saying? I hereby delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President of public law on the use of military force and support of partner forces to the Congress. Already been done. This was quote unquote Joe for the normies, all the normies out there and the average people who will read, who were reading. No, they weren't reading. We know they weren't. This is him delegating to the Secretary of Defense. Listen to this. Section 1285A3. You know what that is? You know what 1285A3 is? Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. President Trump had already delegated to the Secretary of Defense direct authority in Executive Order 13919 on April the 30th, 2020. It's already there. And then the order of succession within the Department of Defense, the last and most recent, which is December the 10th, 2020, President Donald John Trump, Secretary of Defense already had that authority. Quote unquote Joe never had an order of succession within the Department of Defense. Every other president had one, except for Joe. This would be Joe for the normies. This would be Joe giving up his authority as Commander-in-Chief to the Secretary of Defense. The functions. It says the authority and functions vested in the President of Section 1550. So that's the Donald John Trump and 1550. It can't get any more simpler than that. The last national security strategy on the Department of Defense right now as we speak. Here we are, it's 2025. 2022 will be 3 years ago. How come Joe Biden's, quote unquote, Joe, how come his national security strategy from 2022 isn't on the Department of Defense? Where is it? Why isn't it archived on the DOD? It's 3 years now. It should be archived there. Where is it? President Trump showed you over in North Carolina back in the fall, last fall. He said, I'd like to recognize someone who's been with me before all this. You were before all this, weren't you, General? You were with me before all of this. What is this, President Trump? Will you please tell the people what this is? All of what? Be specific, President Trump. What is this? Dun 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 dun. Dun bum bum bum. This is Operation General Keith Kellogg. Do you know who the author of the 2017 National Security Strategy is? The last NSS on the Department of Defense. You know who the author is? Keith Kellogg. Did you not see me post way back last year when the media said, oh, here's a new 2025 national security strategy just in case President Trump becomes president, he can get an early start on all the military operations. There's never been an NSS put out before a presidency. You know who the author of it was? Keith Kellogg. You know who the editor was? The same editor from 2017. Why is the last White House military office that pulls up on Google Obama's? The last archive page for the White House military office is Obama's. Do you know what the White House military office does, ladies and gentlemen? Logistics of Air Force One and Marine One, the travel of the president. Do you not see President Trump rolling around on Marine One? Do you not see him rolling around on Air Force One? Where's this archive page at? If he was a former president, 2021 to 2017, 2017 to 2021, however you want to look at it, forward to backward, there should be an archive page on Google, on search, for President Trump's 2017 to 2021. Where is it? It's not there. Where's Joe's at? It's not there. Did you not see? Did the normies not think they saw old quote-unquote Joe riding around on Air Force One? that never had a presidential call sign? Not once. Where is it? These are just straight up, every other president's had them. How come those two don't have any? It's almost as if there was it's almost as if there's a military occupation and a continuity of government going on, ain't it? I mean, it's just almost as if this reconstitution of the executive branch was telling you, hey, everything you're watching ain't real. We're resetting the executive branch. Everything that happened from 2021 to 2025 with quote-unquote Joe didn't do anything. Didn't do a thing. From 2021 to 2023, they showed the regular, normal people that Joe Biden, quote-unquote Joe, had Democrat House and Senate. Hear me out now. This is where we really put the liberals in their place. Again, we drive it home. This is going to be the one you share with your libtards or tag them. Add a liberal, baby. I can take it. Add them. Add them. Tell them they're dumber than a box of turtle hair. Tell them. Lay on. Add on them, baby. From 2021 to 2023, they displayed to the people that quote-unquote Joe had control of the presidency, the Democrat House, and the Democrat Senate. But they never revoked a single executive order by President Trump with a national emergency. They didn't even let it terminate automatically. Executive orders, ladies and gentlemen, do not require legislation whatsoever. They don't require legislation. National emergencies have an automatic 2-year termination on them, meaning if they're not continued, they automatically terminate. To continue them, you need a pen, paper, president. Executive orders are exactly what they say. They're executive. They're the executive branch. They're the presidential. That's all you need is a pen, paper, president. So from 2021 to 2023, they showed the world that quote-unquote Joe was Democrat president. They had control of the House and the Senate. And they didn't deem the war order from 2019 unconstitutional. They didn't deem all these other executive orders unconstitutional. Oh no, just continue all those and all those from Obama and all those from Carter and Bush. Let's continue all these as well. Then we're also going to continue 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies by President Trump, which are deporting the migrants, taking back the Panama Canal. It's the one that froze all the assets of all those funding the Chinese Communist military, the People's Republic of China, the PRC. Also, all the trafficking. It depleted Big Farm, went after Big Farm. All these executive orders are the very things that liberals are saying President Trump is a dictator, violating the Constitution, and a threat to quote-unquote democracy. All these things that they're chanting out there, no kings, no king. Biden didn't terminate a single, so they had all Democrat control. You heard quote-unquote Biden in 2023 in a press conference. He said, "Oh, you mean the wall thing? Well, they didn't give me a bill or anything like that." The president has full control of the border, ladies and gentlemen. Invasion or rebellion of public safety. There's your suspension clause right there. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. And the president has full control as well to call and say, shut it down. Shut it down. President Trump showed you that. Also in that same press conference, he tells you he wasn't president. Multiple times he told you. He said, not in this conference, but in another press conference, he said, can you believe President Trump said that? The sitting president. He told you over and over, but in that same one about the wall thing, he said, well, it hasn't been vetoed. He was talking in context saying that it hasn't been vetoed, meaning he's not the one vetoing it. Who was vetoing? And then you got all these Republicans. This is where Republicans and conservatives and quote-unquote patriots look atrocious. Well, the auto pen. Why are they talking about the auto pen as if someone else was signing it? Because they're keeping you strung along. We're still in the continuity of government. Still in the continuity of government. Let me type that in. Make sure I cover this again. Still in the continuity of government. So the quote-unquote auto pen. All these Republicans, conservatives, Obama's back here pulling the strings, and You know how dumb that looks when there's already laws in place that outline a military occupation and a continuity government? Outlines it to the T. Let me do this one more time. I'm making my notes here as I go, because I got to make these points. So, if Obama was in the background pulling the strings, why did they leave every single executive order that's doing exactly what they say President Trump is a threat to democracy, a dictator, and destroying the democracy and all these other things? Why? Why would Obama do that? So what you witnessed was, quote-unquote, Biden with the 2021 to 2023 Democrat House and Senate. This is what was displayed to the people. I know it's all under military occupation, continuity government. It's all pre-planned. That's what presidential emergency action documents are. They're pre-planned. This is pre-planned. This is all the pre-planned. Everything you're watching has been planned. Everything. Everything that you're witnessing has been pre-planned. Because we're still in the continuity government. It's still on law. It shows we're in the continuity government. By law, we're still in the continuity government. I don't know how many other ways we can say it. By law, we're in a cog. So why would Obama, behind the scenes back here, why would they keep all these things open? This is what it would show you. So the tariffs were put into place in 2018. They didn't terminate one single tariff. Tariffs are presidential authority. Congress deemed that to the president. All right. Not a single tariff was terminated from 2021 to 2025. Not a single judge, not one single judge blocked the tariff from 2021 to 2025. Why? How? I mean, come on. And this ain't one of those why and hows like all these surface level idiots are trying to do with you out there. It's just proving the point. Okay, so they showed to the people, to the average normies out there, that Biden, quote unquote, Democrat president, Democrat House, Democrat Senate, kept all these things in place. And this is what it would be doing. This would be a replica of what it would look like. Hey, President Trump, hey, congratulations. I mean, we really wanted to win, but we didn't win, you know. And so here you go. Congratulations on Inauguration Day, January the 2025. Here's all your executive orders with national emergencies. We kept those in place. We knew they automatically terminated, so we went ahead and continued them. All right, every 2 years we continue those. All right, so this way, starting on January 20th, like all your speeches you said on rallies out here in 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024, you told all your people that when you get in office, you're going to have a mass deportation. So we kept that order in place right here. We didn't terminate any of the war orders that your Democratic House and Republican Senate passed December the 20th, 2019. We didn't deem it unconstitutional. We didn't terminate any of that. We didn't revoke any of your executive orders with your reserve components on Executive Order 13912, Title 10, Section 12302. We kept it going, all right? It's still going in place, all right? We didn't terminate all these other executive orders over here that we've never planned on doing anything with anyway, that Obama did, and Bush did, and Clinton did, and Bush Sr. did, and Reagan did, and Carter did. We left all these open because we weren't planning on doing anything with those anyway. We left those for you as well, where you can take a little slack because people are going to say, oh, you're a dictator and all those other things. But we know that you're going to end all these national emergencies that have been in place all these years. We left those open because we know that you will do what you say you'll do. So we left those open. And also we left open all the executive orders with national emergencies that you declared. 8 of those that are actually deporting illegal migrants, taking the Panama Canal back, all the illicit drugs and drug trafficking and child trafficking and sex trafficking and human trafficking. We left all those open. We left all the ones open that you're actually destroying Big Pharma. But here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. We left all this open for you. Just hand back. You don't have to skip a beat. You can just keep right on enforcing those, just like you never left office. All right. And then also, here's what we're going to do. By the way, we're going to call you a dictator and a threat to democracy, and that you're violating the Constitution. But I'm sure you can take it because you're pretty thick-skinned, and those things don't seem to faze you. So that's what we're going to do. So you'll know we're over here doing it. That's what it would be like. That's how simple this stuff is. That is exactly how simple this is. That is how stupid and atrocious liberals look, certain Republicans, certain conservatives, and certain patriots right now. So when you see a page, oh, World War III's beginning. Oh my God, World War III. Oh shit! Oh, please pray. Oh, pray for this and pray for that. Pray for this. All right, I'm not knocking prayer, but when you look like that, when you look atrocious, and you don't know that Iran and Israel, this is all in Army publications 6 years ago. This is all a plan. Everything is pre-planned. You can know it. It's all public. All right. So when you're sounding like the world's falling on you and oh my gosh, oh what do I do? No. When you're looking like that, guys like me don't want you to look like that. I've been sitting here taking time out of my time, but this is an oath. This is keeping an oath. This is what keeping an oath looks like. All right. So when you see all that resistance out there, resistance, depending on what it is, some of it is just dumb. All right. There's people out there resisting stuff that will actually support them, help them. So that's how dumb liberals look right now, calling President Trump, oh, no king. It's not unconstitutional. Everything is in place. But why would quote-unquote Joe and quote-unquote Obama and quote-unquote Hillary and all the people who supported quote-unquote Joe, why would they keep these in place? I mean, that's the stuff that baffles my mind. That is how simple this is. That's how simple it is. And that's also why I always have to do this, just because it's so much fun. There was a certain idiot 2 years ago who tried to steal my trademark. He went on he was telling me all over the internet. He was telling people, oh, presidents, this is what presidents do. They continue executive orders. Continuing that order don't mean anything. Yo, you look stupid now, don't you, pal? Here he is, an officer in the military. The same woke officers that all need eliminated. They need X'd out of the military. That's how dumb people look. They see what they did by opening their mouth way too soon, way back here. That's what happens when you don't know the laws. You don't know the orders. You don't know what's currently in votes right now. Walking around telling people, presidents that's what they do. They continue executive orders. That's how funny this is. Oh! So you're going to tell me that President Trump's a threat to democracy and violating the Constitution and he's a dictator and all these other things? And that's just what presidents do? Oh, here you go, President Trump. We didn't terminate anything of yours. The people, they knew we had full authority. No, they didn't. This is how simple this is. They didn't have any authority. This is all pre-planned. This is all a movie. Everything you're watching is pre-planned. It's all there. That's exactly what presidential emergency action documents are. They're pre-planned. They're pre-drafted. They're executive orders, national emergency proclamations, and treaties. Pre-drafted. This is already there. But they're unique. It's a unique setup. So let's go back. Now let's circle back around to this is special operations. All right, I always bring my cap up again. Special operations, spearhead. That's what President Trump's doing when he's doing at every major meeting, at every major event. That's what spearhead is. That's a proclamation in itself because it's timestamped. It's timestamped in history. You'll be able to go back and look at all the other photos of President Trump in the past when it's all said and done. You're going to be able to see those. That was timestamped. That was a visual. That all of these meetings, all of these events, special operations, tip of the spear, spearhead. All right. So all these things. So now let's go back. All right. To presidential emergency action documents and then also tie in. So when Eisenhower established that, they established when you declared a national emergency, all right, before 1973 War Powers Act, keep in mind, this was before that, when they declared a national emergency, whenever the president did this, then what took place? If it was a defense order, put in a defense mode, then that president was a wartime president. Those orders didn't transfer to a new president, weren't supposed to. That's what they started doing with Carter, and that's what they started doing from Carter forward. The real deep state, the real deep bureaucracy, that's what they did. They started passing forward. They would declare national emergencies and keep them open. Money. They never had any intentions of doing what the law said as prescribed by the law. That's why it's key to listen to prescribed by the law. Presidential emergency action documents expand the power of the president. That same idiot from 2 years ago said that, oh, a president can't serve past 2 terms. Yes, he can. Presidential emergency action documents, continuity government. Yes, they can. By law. But it has to be a reason to use that. And that is exactly what's taking place. All right, a couple of days ago, this person was saying it was not an invasion. I'm like, the president himself, my commander-in-chief, tells people all the time, and I know it is because of recognizing that, knowing what that is. It is an invasion. That's what allowed President Trump to do that. So that's why Republicans, conservatives with the platforms look atrocious right now. There's not many Republican conservative platforms, all right, patriot platforms that know what's going on. It had to be done lawfully, but it had to be a specific reason to use this type of power, all right, and it's there. So with the Democrats introducing the war order, all right, that's even more powerful because that shows you that it's a joint. It shows you it's bipartisan. All right, it shows you it's not President Trump acting as a Republican and generals acting like Republicans and world leaders acting like Republicans. All right, it's not that at all. It had to be done lawfully a certain way. Very, very detailed. That's why it is unique what I have and what I talk about. I'm the only one who's talked about puppet governments out of everybody out there. All right, my grandfather, rest in peace, Army veteran as well. 20 years he'll be gone this year. My grandfather's one I listened to. He loved the tactic of the puppet governments in the 40s. All right, you're watching a lot of tactics that's already been used that's put back into place. That's exactly what's going on. It had to be done lawfully. So your joint publication. So let's go to the COG really quick. So let's go ahead and show unequivocal proof. You have people out there that want unequivocal proof, but they don't even know what the terms are to even know how to apply the unequivocal proof. All right, but President Trump invoked Executive Order 13961 on December 7, 2020. That was a continuity government. That right there showed you, when that was invoked, that showed you there's presidential emergency action documents behind it. So this past March, he said, I've signed over 400 executive actions since January the 20th. There were only 150 on the register at the time, Federal Register, which is public for you, the people, to go look at. Where were the other 250? Presidential emergency action documents. All right, so if Joe was president, so look at this. This is how stupid this would be for a Democrat, president, House, and Senate if they were real, and they weren't, but apply it this way if they were real. So President Trump invoked a continuity government, which means there's a military occupation as well. Because that is saying, hey, we're going into a defense strategy. We've been invaded. We have rebellion in this nation. Suspend the Constitution. They federalized 1 million reserve components. Now you're seeing the presidential call-up of National Guard, Title 10 as well, but a different Title 10, a different section, 12406, which is presidential call-up of the National Guard, not the reserve components. Reserves serve federal only. They're federal only. That's how you know right off the gate this is a military occupation, because they're federal only. Now the National Guard being presidentially called up. Then he put the Marine Corps out there. There's your Joint Publication 3-57, your Title 10 regular forces. You don't want them on the streets unless what? Congress deems so, or the Constitution. Well, both of those deem so with Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 that the Democratic House introduced and the Republican Senate passed and put in, and it's the last amendment to the War Powers Act of 1973, which is a war order. It's there. And then all the executive orders that's under that are there. This Title 10, all these Title 10 presidential call-ups. Biden didn't have a Title 10 like that. None of that. He had one Title 10 that was 3,000 reserve components, but those 3,000 reserves were out of that 1 million reserves. It was a continuity government. It was a military occupation. This is an operation. That's why you got to understand that. That wasn't really Biden. All right, so now you got to tie this in. You got to hang with me. Tie it in. Watch this. So if it wasn't a continuity government, then they displayed to you the people that, again, quote-unquote Joe, had president, House, and Senate. Why would they let a continuity government run from December the 7th, 2020 to January the 19th, 2025? So just this January 19th, 2025, quote-unquote Joe partially, keyword, partially revoked portions of Executive Order 13961, which means we're still in a continuity of government. Why would Joe wait to the last full 24-hour day of a presidency to partially revoke a continuity of government that was put into place December the 7th, 2020? If President Trump is a threat to democracy and all these other things, why would they leave all these things in place? If it wasn't, you can't revoke something that wasn't invoked. So it proves continuity of government. Already, that proves continuity of government. And they only partially revoked it, which means we're still in the continuity of government. We're still in the military occupation. So for all the idiots out there that you hear that, oh, dear Johnson's just keeping this going. No, laws and orders show that we're in a partial revocation, meaning it's still partially invoked continuity of government. And President Trump told you way back in November, he told you, he said pretty soon we will be not an occupied country. He didn't say when, he just said pretty soon. All right, so he told you we're still going to be under it a little while. And as you know, Israel will be saved for last. All right, so you know that. And you're witnessing that right now. You're witnessing everything. So now you got to go back to knowing that COG is still in place. That means when there's a continuity of government, there's a presidential emergency action document. Those don't transfer whatsoever. So that's why you got to know that Joe was a pre-planned. All right, all this was pre-planned. They had to keep things going. They had to clean this out lawfully, but they had to do it right. And when we went full-fledged military occupation, that meant clean everything while we can. Let's do it. Let's do it now. There's going to be some bumps. The normal people, the average people are going to be bickering and fussing and whining and complaining. You don't have to. You don't have to. You can know that this is all being done lawfully, bipartisan, but also with world leaders for humanity, and not look atrocious like the libtards, and not look like the rhino Republicans and the never-Trumpers. A lot of these people are never-Trumpers, and they're rhinos. They didn't want to vote for President Trump, but they had to because that was, quote-unquote, all they had to vote for. That's why they look atrocious. All right? History's going to account for President Trump in the dash, and history's going to show I'm going to be one of the last ones standing with all the consistencies. Because I'm working under President Trump. It is that simple. It is, I mean, you can't get any more simpler than that. It's straight up all the laws and orders currently invoked. All right, so now go to Joint Publication 3-57 again, where it says, generally, you don't want the normal, regular Department of Defense Title 10 forces with civilian operations unless, there's your key word, unless the what? Constitution or Congress deems so. Well, they did so. Your Democratic House introduced Section 1550, and your Republican Senate put that in the War Powers Act of 1973, which is a War Powers Act. It's a war order. And then you have an executive document, so quote-unquote Joe relinquishing his power and authority to the Secretary of Defense and the President of the Section 1550. Who was the President of 1550? Donald John Trump. It's that simple. All right. So then you pull in your presidential emergency action documents. They were established to expand the power of the president if had to be. And that's what you witness. They were never supposed to be passing these executive orders with these national emergencies like they have. All right. That was where Congress tried to limit the president's power in 1973 in the War Powers Act, where they had to declare a national emergency. So President Trump and the generals and the leaders that know how the law is supposed to be, how it's supposed to read, they're taking all of the deep state swamps tactics and using them against them. The CIA are the ones who use all these masks for years. All right. You have your limitations where Congress tried to limit the president, the bureaucracy, the deep state. They try to limit the president for money. The judicial branch try to take over as your top branch. Our founders established it a certain way. Legislative, executive, and then judicial. We vote in the first two, and then the president appoints and the Senate confirms. Our Federalist Papers say that the Senate is a better trial than the Supreme Court. Hoo-hoo-hoo! Imagine that. Imagine our founders saying that. That's why Marbury versus Madison 1803 is so important. That's why the chief back then, he had to make sure he ruled a certain way because that was the founding father and the main father, the father of the Constitution, in there telling the Supreme Court that they established and created and wrote and brought up. Our founders established the Supreme Court. They're the ones that thought of this levels of courts. And there's the father of the Constitution having to go in there and tell the Supreme Court how a law looks. So that's why they had to rule a certain way, because they knew if they didn't rule a certain way, that they would just maybe abolish that court or abolish the whole system and start all over again. So that's why it's important. This is why law is important. You ain't got to be a lawyer to know the law. All right. Before 1871, someone like me could go study under a lawyer, and the lawyer go, man, you got the brains for this. You know all these books, and you read it well, you quote it well, you have a passion for it, you're fair, you're honest, and you're transparent. Hey, practice with me. That was before all this bull crap, and the bar was established in the 1870s, then the 1871 Organic Act, the 1878 Organic Act, when the Federal Reserve was established in 1913, when the IRS was established. All right, President Trump's already alluded to all this. When the swamp took over, when we went back up under the crown. That's why you got to know all this stuff. All right. So, we already talked about the tariffs. Now, New York, the National Guard have been in the subways. All right, 2022, 2023. You cannot find the executive order by the governor of New York for the subways in 2022 and 2023. But the Adjutant General has reported that the National Guard are in the subways in 2022 and 2023. All right, now there is an executive order. I finally found the executive order by the governor of New York for this most recent call up to the prisons. But again, where's the executive order from the New York governor from 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024? It's not there. All right, so that order is your presidential from Executive Order 13912. There's no other Title 10 there. All right, so there's that. All right, your Title 32. Again, if Title 32 was strictly the governor and the governor only and no president involved in any of that, like some of these National Guard people make you think that are on the comment boxes sometimes, no. We'd have had a power-tripping governor by somewhere in there. The Adjutant General, the governor and the Adjutant General is the one that reports to the president. It says this. It reports to the governor unless the National Guard are federalized by Title 10. All right? But again, when a governor deploys their National Guard, the president's still involved with that on the back side over here. All right? So you can bet on your rear end that is a for fact. All right, when you hear people out there saying that, you gotta be careful who you're listening to. Some of these people, again, they could lay on the diving board and try to pour a bottle of water in an empty swimming pool, and they look like they peed on themselves. They're that bad. So, if you want to keep looking at dumb people, there's plenty of them out there. Texas, 2024. President Trump is at the border of Texas. He was the only president seen in Del Rio and Eagle Pass, which was the hottest part. That's all the media covered, was Eagle Pass and Del Rio. Eagle Pass, Del Rio. If President Trump was a former president, that would have been a breach of national security. It would have also been a violation of his own Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency for election interference, because it was 2024. It was the election year. I mean, that's how simple that is. But he was the only person seen with the governor of Texas and the Adjutant General. The former president, quote unquote, get out of here. So, former. He wasn't a former president. Here's how you prove that. All right? The border. It's not a state issue. Now, let's just paint this picture. If it was a state issue only, then let's say that Arizona had a weaker everything than New Mexico and Texas and California. And let's just talk about those borders along Mexico. We won't talk about the borders people forget about on Canada. All right, but let's talk about that. If Arizona was weaker and it was only a state thing, then that would mean that Texas would just look after Texas and New Mexico, and California. So as it sits right now, you have where a president can call up and put Alabama or Maine or Michigan in Texas or any state. But if it was just a state thing, then what would happen was Texas would be for Texas, New Mexico, California, California. And then you'd say, oh, Arizona don't have that Grave National Guard, so all these illegal migrants can go, hey, they can catch wind that, hey, this passage right here, we can go through here, and no one else can come. That's how simple that is. That's also how atrocious certain people who've been in the National Guard and reserves, but also even regular military, that's how atrocious they sound when they say certain things out there. This is why you got to know it. So, people say, oh, he trashes veterans. I don't trash veterans. I trash their IQ, all right, because that's their discrepancy. It's not what they did in service and their call to service. It's their IQ of the laws and orders of what they served under, the whole premise of why you're in. All right, so that's why that listing sounds atrocious. It's not a state thing. So President Trump at the border of Texas, he told everybody twice, it's a military operation and you have a war going on. All right, the invasion, that is the invasion. That is your invasion right there. All right, so the Adjutant General gives all the answers away. President Trump standing there with the governor and the Adjutant General. This is Texas 2024 in February 2024. The Adjutant General reports to the governor unless the National Guard are federalized by Title 10, which is presidential authority. That's the Uniform Code of Military Justice. All right. The only Title 10 order in place for those National Guard, 14 states deployed to Texas in February 2024, the only executive order in place was Title 10 by President Trump, Executive Order 13912. Because it would have been a breach of national security and a violation of federal law. President Trump would have been there as a quote-unquote former president, and he wasn't a former president. You don't at ease a former commander. All right, that's all military language. All right, so it's that simple. John Bolton, he gave John Bolton a nickname. All right, John Bolton was on CNN during February 2024. What did John Bolton say? The host asked him, could President Trump serve a second term under all the allegations and all the court cases, etc.? John Bolton said, the Constitution specifically bars a president from serving a third term. He didn't say about it. A host asked about a second term. John Bolton, why would he be saying about a third term? He said the Constitution specifically bars the president from serving a third term, but President Trump, I believe, will seek to ratify the Constitution. Paraphrasing, but that's exactly what he said, that terminology. All right, so now watch this. This is pretty funny. I was talking to someone the other day. I said, now think about this. If Obama, now listen close, if Obama, Hillary, Bill, Michelle, Big Mike, George W., and Laura, and we know old Jimmy Carter's done gone on now, but if Obama, Bill, Hillary, and George were all free to roam right now, free, nothing shackling them, no constraints, not detained, not anything. All right, this is for the normies and the libtards. If Obama were free to roam everywhere around the nation, on planet Earth even, so Obama, Hillary, Bill, and George, they all showed all these together, even old W, they showed him in unison with those at quote-unquote funerals and at quote-unquote things in the past. So if all four of those had free roam of the earth right now, why aren't they in Democrat-infested cities and events and or doing rallies like President Trump did in 2021, 2022, 2023? Where are they? These are the liberals' heroes. So if they were free to roam, where are they? And I'm not talking about an occasional little tweet or the little things that people think that makes them real, or the few little interviews they've shown which are all closed caption. If they're free to roam, why aren't they at rallies, at events or taking back this nation from the dictator and the authoritarian and all. Where are they? That alone right there can solve everything. If people really pay attention and think about it, if they had free roam, they could be doing all kinds of major events. They could be going around at all these different Democrats and all these, like, you know, quote unquote protests and all this other stuff, making a rally and all. Where are they? It's that simple. All right. This is why people need to not overthink this stuff. So President Trump is the first president. So we're getting into Iran now and Israel. I've seen a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservatives and a lot of patriots, platforms and normal people. You look atrocious right now. You got to listen. If you love President Trump and you love the military, it's all in laws and orders. It's all in publications way back here. All right, President Trump is the first president to implement a special operations subterranean warfare all-out strategy. He's the first. This is why it's so important. He gets credit for that. All right. JFK was recognized in the 2023 Special Operations Command Renaissance publication. You need to go read that. It's really cool read. And at the very bottom, there's an article, and it highlights JFK's speech that he made about guerrilla warfare. Now, this is where people got to listen. Guerrilla warfare can be good with the good guys, and it can be bad with the bad guys. All right? Any kind of war tactics that gets in the hands of the bad guys can be bad. But when it's in the hands of the good guys, it's good. That's why you need people like myself, but especially all the commanders that I'm on with, retired special operations, all right, with multiple years, all right. You need people who know how to think this way, who can show you all this. It's exactly what you're watching. President Trump with a spearhead on his ball cap the other day. Unconventional warfare, straight off the gates. The very first thing you see on Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide that pulls up that I've been talking about for a long time, that are in these books already. Special operations, tip of the spear, spearhead. It's all special operations. All right, so subterranean warfare. President Trump is the first to implement an all-out strategy to do so. So in 2019, the Army, happy birthday Army again, happy birthday to my beloved branch. All right, the Army puts out a publication, but it's really the Department of, it's a Defense Intelligence Agency that puts out the publication. All right, so they put out this publication. All right, it talks about Iran. It talks about underground facilities that a lot of people call conspiracy. Even Republicans call conspiracy for all these years. They don't believe in tunnels. They don't believe in, well, why wouldn't I see trafficking if it happened as much as y'all said it does? That's how atrocious we have of people. All right, Defense Intelligence Agency, Iran, 2019, talking about underground facilities, subterranean warfare, tunnels. It even talks about North Korea in this publication, and there are 8,000 plus tunnel systems in North Korea alone. All right, it talks about the tunnels. It talks about the domes, deep underground military bases. It talks about all these things. This is out in 2019. Then you have a publication by the United States Army again, all right, which is 2019 as well, and also goes into 2020 about Israel. In a chapter in there, it specifically says Gaza, Egypt, cross-border operations. What have you been seeing in Egypt? The MFO been flying back and forth. All right, a certain unit, certain group. That's basically like a defense kind of contract group, but a good kind. All right, they're in and out of Egypt all the time. You have all kinds of aircraft in and out of Egypt, in and out of Gaza, in and out of Israel, all U.S. and all different of our allies, all over Tunisia, Algeria, Nigeria, etc. All right, when the quote-unquote, they showed the quote-unquote war take place October the 7th, 2023, within 1 week's time, 1 week, all these military were in and out of Israel, Romania, Bulgaria, Argentina, Mexico, Canada, Netherlands, Poland, Ukraine. What was Ukraine doing there? Russia. What was Russia doing there? All right. Japan, Thailand, New Zealand, Australia, Sweden, France, Germany, Canada, said them, Mexico, Colombia, What are all these countries doing in Israel? Military. All in 1 week. That's what you witness. All right? And in this Army publication, it specifically says that the Army is spending X amount, $1 million. Well, when you go over and you look up the, let's see, December, let me look it up. See what day that was. That was June 24th, 2018. Military. It says on military.com, June 24th, this is one of your first articles that came out on military.com, which is typically a military publication. Most normies wouldn't know about that. But it says the Army is spending $572 million training and equipping 26 of its 31 active combat brigades to fight in large-scale subterranean facilities that exist beneath dense urban areas around the world. I mean, this tells you straight out the gate. All right? And then, in 2019 as well, in August 2019, there were articles that came out, Washington Examiner and a few others, and it told you the same thing. Then, you got to know President Trump was the one who established the executive orders to go against Big Farm. And all of a sudden, you have Jonhson & Jonhson in a court case in Oklahoma, the great state of Oklahoma, place I lived once upon a time. Beautiful state. Every county in Oklahoma went red this year. Every county was red in the state of Oklahoma. That is impressive. All right. So all of a sudden you have Jonhson & Jonhson in a court case, and they lose the case. President Trump told everybody, we're not paying for it anymore. Unless I check Jonhson & Johnson's Big Farm, and we know what they have been doing in the past, those who are patriots on here and awake. We're not paying for it anymore, someone else will. Army publication, Army articles, $572 million. Washington Examiner, $572 million. All your mainstream articles that started talking about the Army's large-scale subterranean, well, guess what that means? Go over to the joint publication, 2016. There's your spearhead, special operations, large-scale. $572 million. What did Jonhson & Jonhson have to pay? What are the odds that all of these articles from 2018 and 2019, but especially August 2019, the month that Jonhson & Jonhson loses his court case, what are the odds that Jonhson & Jonhson, Big Farm, has to pay $572 million? And that number is the number that is spent to train our military for subterranean warfare that's taking place in Iran and Israel. What are the odds of that? See, when I raise my voice like that, that's me being passionate. That's not me yelling. That's me going, hey, how is it that people will argue absolute, unequivocal proof? Israel, already in our publications, 2019, saying what's going to take place. Now, Israel is in Iran. All right? So let's show what's taking place there. You hear people right now saying, would it be President Trump starting a foreign war if we aid with Israel? And right now, if you Google, it'll tell you that Israel is requesting U.S. support. Well, this is why paying to know laws and orders is very important. This is why you don't have to be a lawyer to know the law. This is why you don't have to be high-ranking military. You don't even have to be military to know what's going on. You don't even have to be a veteran to know what's going on. Executive Order 12170, 1979, Jimmy Carter. declared a national emergency. That is the oldest national emergency active right now in U.S. history. That executive order is 4 years older than myself. That executive order is 46 years old. What is an executive order being done? What declared a national emergency in 1979 continued every 2 years by a pen, paper, and a president. It's not a national emergency anymore after 2 years. It's not a national emergency after 4, 6, 10, but 46 years. Guess who the national emergency is with? Iran. So no, if we did get involved with Israel and Iran, President Trump will be ending something that the bureaucracy, the deep state swamp, had kept going all this time. Jimmy Carter also blocked, right here, Executive Order 12172, November 26, 1979, delegation of authority with respect to entry of certain aliens into the United States. The Secretary of State and the Attorney General are hereby designated and empowered to exercise in respect of Iranians holding non-immigrant visas the authority conferred upon the President of the Act of June 27, 1952 to prescribe limitations and exceptions on the rules and regulations governing the entry of aliens in the United States. That's why it pays to know laws and orders. You don't have to be a lawyer to know the laws. That's why it pays. That's what you're witnessing right now. Then President Trump tells you, it's all validated daily. I mean, if I did a podcast where I did all the validations, we'd be here for 7, 8, 10 hours. All throughout 2023, 2024, and even before then, some of these were 2020, 2021. I mean, there's just been along the way. He said occupied country, white flag of surrender, capitulations, and then the term puppet government. All right, for example, November speeches. We are an occupied country. We will soon no longer be an occupied country. The Great Liberation Day starts November the 5th. The Great Restoration starts January the 20th. He uses all these terms. All right. Occupied country and puppet government are in the same chapter. Capitulations and white flag of surrender are in the same chapter. All right, so why would President Trump all of a sudden be saying all these terms that are not federal government terms? They're not state government terms. They're not government terms at all. They're all law of war manual. And I'm the only podcaster who's talked about puppet governments. Rest in peace, Grandpa, again. Puppet governments were used in the 40s. Puppet government in the Philippines is most popular. So President Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, who served 4 terms, he was in his 4th term when he died, 13th year when he died. All right. 4th term, died in the 13th year, voted in by the people. It wasn't until 1951 that Congress violated the Constitution by putting term limits on the president. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say to put term limits on the president. Nowhere. There's that Constitution that Democrats love to use that word, but don't know jack, diddly, doo-doo, squat about it. All right, don't know anything about the Declaration of Independence, don't know anything about the Bill of Rights, don't know anything about the Federalist Papers, don't know anything about the Revolutionary War, don't know anything about our history, don't know anything about our founders. Oh, but they want their freedom of expression, which is the Bill of Rights. So they want that, but they don't want anything else written by the same people. That's pretty atrocious. All right. So you have the occupied country comment, and you have the puppet government. All right. Puppet government February 18th, 2025, just this February, 10 days after my birthday, you had a reporter ask President Trump about Russia and the capitulations and a puppet government. Why would a reporter, these reporters don't know their head from a hole in the ground. All right? So why would a reporter be asking President Trump about that? And all of a sudden it was put on Daniel Harris Jr.'s page and all that Russia's using a continuity government. What are the odds of that? I mean, just what are the odds of that? When we have clear continuity government invoked in executive order, and people won't even believe in executive order, all right, amazing. All right, so you have these terms, all right, that President Trump has used that are all law war manual. So an occupied country, well, an occupied territory is what it's actually called in the law war manual. It's not an occupied country, so he slid that one in there, but it's the same thing. All right, so you have an occupied country and a puppet government. So in the puppet governments, those are cool because Roosevelt brings the President Quezon, the real president of the Philippines, to Washington, D.C. He says, you come here, we'll protect you, but we want access to your military. You'll be under me, but I'll have full command of your military. See, Roosevelt was the one that told Congress on December the 8th that if you don't write something, I'll act. All right? If you don't write something. So Congress did what? The first War Powers Act of 1941, and they followed up with the second War Powers Act of 1942. But Roosevelt said, you better act or I will and my military will. You better act, Congress, on paper. All right? So that's what brought the War Powers Act into play in the first place. All right, that's what made all those bureaucrats get to thinking in the 1970s, we better write something in here to limit the power of the president. Nowhere did the Constitution say that. Nowhere. Whatsoever. All right, none of that. All right, it's up to Congress to do what they're supposed to be doing. Representatives, senators, they have a lane. They have a role. All right. And then the president. Then you have his cabinet, and you have the judges, and they're appointed, and you have all these lanes. So it's up to the people to do that. But you don't want to put limitations on the president either, because if the Congress ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing, like the past bureaucracy, then the president's got his hands tied as well. So it can work both ways. That's why the founders wrote the Constitution to be so broad, because it does have movability. It has some space in there. But then you have other laws and orders that fine-tune that. So you can't have the abuse of those. And that's what we've had. So when you look at the occupied country, white flag and surrender, puppet government, but then the puppet government, when Roosevelt brought him there, Japan installed a president to have media access, which was humorous. All right, the military was under full command of Quezon, which was the president's name, and then under Roosevelt. President Laurel was the one that was installed by Japan in the Philippines, and he only had control of civil affairs. So what's cool about that is this. The only three things, there were only three. Uno, dos, tres. There were only three things that were consistent. Only three. With quote unquote Joe, whether you're a normie, average, whatever. There are only three. Every time they showed a soldier around quote unquote Joe, which they were showing you military occupation, straight out the gate, military operation, straight out the gate, continuity government, straight out the gate. But the only three things they showed when the soldiers were around quote unquote Joe were the headbands. There were three things that were consistent. Military intelligence, judge advocate general, and this sounds like four, but it's only three. Civil affairs and psychological operations. That's the three headbands that were consistent around quote unquote Joe every time the TV was shown. The same two that were behind President Trump on Inauguration Day, January the 20th, 2017, military intelligence, judge advocate generals. And then when you're in the actual executive branch overhaul, 2021 to 2025, they added the other visual to show you proclamation as well. Civil affairs and psychological operations. All right. That's exactly what took place in the puppet government, the most notable one in the Philippines. President Quezon, the real president, was under President Roosevelt and his military, full control. Japan installed a faux, a fake, who only met the press. The press thought he was real. They all thought he was real, and he wasn't. He had no control whatsoever of anything. I love this stuff, man. So, occupied country. President Trump told you we're an occupied country. The reporter on February the 18th, 2025, talking about puppet government. Occupied country and puppet government are in the same chapter of the Law of War Manual. Military occupation. White flag of surrender and capitulations. Same chapter of the Law of War Manual. President Trump told you. Remember Angela Merkel? You remember Angela? No one remembers her now. I gave her the white flag of surrender. It's a white flag of truce, but it's the same thing. It's a truce negotiation. When you go read the Law of War Manual, it's a truce negotiation. White flag of surrender. They surrender. It's a truce. All right. Capitulation. You witnessed President Trump go to all these nations. He was the first foreign leader to walk in the forbidden city of China in 500 plus years. He handed the trophy to the sumo wrestler. That the emperor is supposed to do that. Saudi Arabia, crowned king in the sword dance there. He walked in front of the Queen of England. All right. Argentinian president, he left on the stage looking around. He pushed all those people at the NATO summit out of the way, the prime minister, and walked in front of them. Prime Minister of India praised him when he wasn't supposed to, the way he did it. We can keep going. So, you witness these capitulations take place. All throughout mainstream articles, the law firms are capitulating to President Trump. Capitulation, 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 capitulation. Mainstream articles have never talked about capitulations whatsoever. All right. This week, you heard Mike Jonhson in an interview, Speaker of the House. He was asked about his role as Speaker, and he said, well, I'm just a wartime Speaker, and I have no regular schedule. Okay. Check validation straight out the gate. Wartime. All right. Then, wow, no regular schedule. If you're Speaker of the House, you would most definitely have a regular schedule. You've seen every other Speaker of the House, whether you like them or not, have a regular schedule. I'm a wartime Speaker with not a regular schedule. They can't make this any more clear with all the visuals and all the comms daily, weekly, monthly. But laws show we're still in the continuity of government. A partial, which means it's priority. They're taking care of that. It means that we're moving closer. President Trump says, I will be exonerated. The only way to exonerate him from all these idiots out there holding up severed heads and all these other things, rooting for him to be dead and rooting for all these executions and rooting for him. That's why I tell people on the flip side, on Republicans, conservatives, and patriots, don't be rooting for executions. Don't be talking like that. Don't sound like that. You have got to have a level of humanity. Military-industrial complex started all that crap as well. All this stuff about bragging about war and going to war and killing people and all this stuff, it was never supposed to look like this whatsoever. So, two wrongs don't make a right. So you can't look just as atrocious. You need to know the laws. You need to know the orders. You need to know how they are implied. You need to know how they're invoked. You need to know the power and when it's abuse of power. You need to know all that. So don't look just as atrocious. All right? Looking for all these things. All right? So you want justice, it's coming. But you got to appreciate the process before we get there. President Trump says we're going to win so much you're going to get tired of winning. Well, when they show people that all the taxes are unveiled, they're unshackled, the prices are down, and they're coming down. If they went in there and just dropped the prices just like that, just for you, then no one will want to work anymore because they'd be like, well, you were able to drop the price just like that. You were able to go in there and finagle this number down just like that, just change it like that. If they went in there and did that and there was never a process of bringing it down, then moving forward in the future, no one will want to do anything because they'd expect every time, oh, well, you know. So it provides, but it also sets the standard for every single individual to be involved, to understand what's going on, know their roles, know their responsibilities, know their duties. If you're in the oil business, then you need to be doing this. You need to be doing this by all laws and orders. If you're in shipping and handling, or if you're in logistics, or if you're whatever you're in, you need to be doing everything by the standard of the laws and the orders that apply to our foundation, our declaration, our Constitution. So you got to be careful out there, all these people out there, you want justice, justice, justice. You ain't even appreciating the right to get there. Chill out. It's all been handled. But stop rooting for this stuff. Stop rooting for execution. Stop rooting for people to be dead. You look just as atrocious as the liberals out there wanting President Trump to be dead. I mean, that's how atrocious this stuff is. I mean, it's hard to comprehend that there are that many people in reprobate minds. If you agree liberals in reprobate minds because they look like it, don't replicate them. All right. Also this week, President Trump put out that the Associated Press, the appeals court, upheld their ban. All right, so if they're upholding a ban on the Associated Press, meaning they're barred and banned from, and it says specifically that they can't go to Mar-a-Lago, they can't go to the White House, the Associated Press. All right, if they're upholding a ban, that means there was already a ban in place. That means the Associated Press was already barred from President Trump, already barred from reporting, already barred. So it also paints a picture that a lot of these publications out there that he's also hammered, like NPR and all these others, PBS, etc., a lot of these are acting on their own accord. All right, you're not supposed to write anything against the government. All right, so that's why you need to know the laws and the orders. Because if you knew the laws and the orders, you'd know they're all lawful. You'd also know it's all military laws and they're all being carried out by the T of the Title 10 Presidential Authority, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is in our oath again. That's why you got to know all the laws and orders. You got to know how they apply and make them applicable. Study them, know them, and then apply them. So 47 U.S. Code 606. Right off the gate, you heard me way, way back. Those who have been following me for that long time, you've been hearing me say 47 U.S. Code 606. You've heard me on podcasts say it's already been done. 47 U.S. Code 606. It's actually titled War Powers of the President. He can control radio, TV, and internet broadcast, transmissions. All right. With the appeals court upholding, it's telling you it's already been in place. This ban and this bar on the Associated Press, appeals court upholding that this bar and ban on the AP can still be applied by the president. That's a direct point to 47 U.S. Code Section 606 titled War Powers of the President. During wartime, the president can suspend, he can do all kinds of things that he needs to be done to radio, TV, and internet broadcasts, which means media, all sorts. It's all in laws and orders, baby. It's all there. That was just this past week. All right. The reserve components have been active daily since the order was put into place all over this nation. When you see people comment on my page occasionally, the idiots out there, oh, here comes another aircraft photo. That's how dumb they are. And they're only putting a giant red X on their forehead that they're a dumb you know what. All right. They're dumber than a box of turtle hair. All right. That's what they are. I mean, they're not wanting to be a part of humanity whatsoever. Tip of the spear on President Trump's ball cap just this past week. All right. The hand formation again. It's all outlined there. So when you hear these liberals out there talking about, oh, this is unconstitutional and this, that, no, it's not. They don't know the Constitution. They don't know anything about the Constitution. They don't know anything about the foundation. They don't know anything about the Revolutionary War. They don't know anything about the timeline that I gave already. They don't know anything about the Declaration of Independence. They never quote from the Declaration of Independence. They never quote from the Articles of Confederation, which you don't really have to in one way, but they still don't know about them. They don't know about the Constitution. They don't know about the Bill of Rights. They don't know anything. And that's why Republicans and conservatives and patriots don't need to look just as atrocious. There's already a plan in place. It's already there. President Trump put it there. It's already there. He gave you the visual right there. He gave you a visual April the 2nd, 2023. He was already claiming in April 2023. That was a year and 7 months before November the 5th, 2024. He's already saying, hey, I'm 45. I'm also 46. I never left. By laws and orders, I never left. It was a military occupation. It was an overhaul of the executive branch. We showed you with a funeral for Joe Biden on January the 20th, 2021, 3 cannons at Arlington. No officers present for the cannon salute. The soldiers didn't salute the motorcade. We showed you all this. It was an overhaul. January the 1st, reconstitution of the executive branch. Publication. Then he's saying I'm going to be 47 a year and 7 months before the actual date. When liberals, Republicans, conservatives, and certain patriots act like they've been acting, make comments like they make, get mad when I correct them. There's people that I've gone in their comment box and corrected and they want to retaliate. All they're doing is a disservice to every man and woman who's ever served in the uniform. Whether they know the laws and orders or not, they stand to be corrected, and they can be corrected. And majority of veterans, when they are presented with the laws and the orders, saying, hey man, you were out there, I saw you at that protest, and you don't know what's in laws and orders. You have no idea what you think you're protesting. Here's your Title 10 authority right here. This is the same Title 10 you raise your right hand to. This is it right here. All right, National Guard, yeah, they swore in under Title 32. But again, it's still an oath to the Constitution, the same. But every reserve and active duty swore in under Title 10, Section 502. When you are out there looking at all you're doing is a disjustice. If you're a liberal, you hate President Trump right out the gate, well, you're still doing a disservice to the United States military. All walls. Every past, present, etc. You look atrocious. They're all lawful orders. All lawful. If they weren't lawful, they shouldn't be in the law. Everything that President Trump's using, everything, even with a Title 10, Section 12302 or 12406, it doesn't matter. Even though it's his executive order on a date of 2020 and also the dates of 2025 now and all the other executive orders, the Title 10 authority was 1956. That was the overhaul of Title 10. That was the new Title 10. It's been in place since 1775. But the new overhaul, 1956. All right. Title 50. All these, Title 50 is legislative in the first place. So that ain't, there's that straight out the gate. So everything, 1550 in the War Powers Act is the war order in place, the foundational order of what you're watching right now. But every military movement that you see, especially in this nation, is all under that war order right there from 1550. Introduced by a Democratic House, passed with the Republican Senate December the 20th, 2019. If they weren't lawful orders, then as Marbury versus Madison 1803 says, any law repugnant to the Constitution is void. So it should not be on paper. Therefore, the president, as President Trump could do, if he was a normal, regular sitting president, which he's not, but if he was, all he'd have to say is, well, why did you pass Congresses, never deem any of these unconstitutional? Why did you leave all this on paper as the application and prescription of law to invoke? That's all he had to say. And there's not a thing in the world they can do about it. Not a thing in the world. Especially when it backs and supports the Constitution. But then the Constitution will not have life or precedent. The Constitution will not have life or precedent if it were not for the founders kicking off that Revolutionary War, declaring independence 7 years before the war ended, and what the words and literature says of the Declaration. That gives us our rights. That's why liberals look atrocious by using the Constitution as a basis to stand on. We're doing that. We're doing exactly what the Constitution says. All of us Republicans that know what's going on, conservatives that know, and patriots, that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing exactly what the Declaration gives us the authority to do, which came first. It is their right, it is their duty to overthrow such government that goes against the foundation and establish its new foundation. That's exactly what we're doing. We took the power out of D.C. That's exactly what Special Operations has been doing. That's exactly what all of us, all the secret military, all of the people who infiltrated, they never dreamt we would get in and infiltrate all of their camps. Everything. Figure out where the money was going. Follow the money. Remember President Trump? Follow the money. Well, you can't trap the people if you don't follow the money, see where the money's going, who's doing what, where's it going, who's operating with it. People have forgotten so many terms that President Trump said. The best is yet to come. Follow the money. Nothing can stop what's coming. I mean, everything that you claim to be, especially if you are a patriot and a President Trump supporter, you can't say all these things without knowing what's driving this force and what the laws and orders are that allowed him to do this lawfully. But it's not him. He's just the face of it. He took the face. He took the scrutiny. He took the mockery. He will be exonerated, not acquitted. Exonerated means nothing on my record. Not a thing. All right. And the only people who need him exonerated, not me. Not you, the patriot, the real patriot. Not you, the Republican, the real Republican, conservative patriots. Not you. It's all those people who want him dead, who are rooting for him to die, who are rooting for him to be assassinated. It's those people who need him exonerated. So don't think for a second that there's not a plan in place that's going to bring all this to a halt, but also show you and exonerate him, but also validate the dash in full context. It's already there in these books on my platforms. It's already there because I'm operating as a person keeping my oath, and I know all the laws and orders. God gave me the ability to retain it all, put it right here, and not Hansel and Gretel you and throw it to you and give it to you in a 2 or 3 hour video for you to take and watch over and over and study, and then come back if you're struggling and study. But no throwing of the crumbs and give it to you all in one setting. It's going to be exonerated and it's going to be validated in its full entirety. It's going to have to be in order for us to set a new precedent in the future. President Trump and the military did not do this just for us to, have a clean, we got new laws and orders, and we cleaned out this here. No. You have to show people. You have to show this is what's going to happen if you do this. Here's your punishment. They got to do, So justice is coming. They're going to have to show people this is what's going to happen. If you burn a flag, you get a year in jail. If you throw rocks at law enforcement, this is what's going to happen to you. If you storm the Capitol, in the wrong kind of context, this is what's going to happen to you. When you do these things, like the law enforcement said in Florida, when people are saying that's unconstitutional. No, it's not. That's a very, very thing, especially from a sheriff's department. No, you're not going to come in here and act like this. We conquered this nation years ago. When people say Native American, we conquered this nation. And people can say all they want to, but guess what? They're not leaving this nation. They're not leaving it whatsoever. So when they bring up all these things out there, they look atrocious. We're in a nation founded and established. If they wanted it to go back to anything, they're not fighting for it. They're not trying to do anything about it. So President Trump will most certainly be exonerated. And this dash is going to be accounted for in history. U.S. history, world history. It's going to be accounted for. So the only way they can do that is to show people. But win. You're going to get tired of winning. When they get everybody in a place where they see all these things happening, the liberals They're going to look stupid if they say anything about January 6th anymore after what happened yesterday. All right. Now they're going to start ostracizing these people lawfully, not in a bad way, but because they don't want to get right. So guess what's going to happen? You start ostracizing them. You start trapping them. You flip their narrative. Used to, liberals were against war. They were rooting for Ukraine to keep going on Russia. So all of a sudden, you're rooting for war? You want war to keep going? Didn't you? Aren't you the ones who bashed Bush and all these things? And should have been rightfully so. But now, all their ideologies have been flipped on them. And they don't even realize it. So you Republicans, you conservatives, you the patriots, you don't want to look just like them. And too many are looking like that right now. That's why my attitude remains. I know there are good patriots on here, and I'm not talking down to you. I talk on every platform as if there's someone new listening, because I gain new followers daily, hundreds on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. But I gain hundreds a day on there. So I talk as if you're new. But I see all the negative out there. So I address the negative on the front. When we get to a place where we can celebrate and we can relax even more and we can go down to a local brewery or whatever, Mexican place, whatever, and you want to drink tequila and I want to drink a water, which it won't be a water. I like certain sweet drinks myself, like Pepsi still. They ain't good for you, but I still drink them. You know, you got people out there, they bash everything. But look, whatever you want to do, boo-boo, that's on you. So when we get to a place where we can celebrate, we'll celebrate. But until then, when there's so many people out there all over Facebook and all, especially Facebook, because they're laggards, all right? They're the last to know anything, they're the last to share anything. So it's just the way it is. Data shows that, a laggard. All right, so when we get to that place, we'll get there. But there's still so many people claiming to be Republicans, claiming to be conservatives, claiming to be patriots, claiming to be President Trump supporters, who have no clue what's going on right now. And you can know. It's already there. And it sounds maybe braggadocious. Okay, well, it's going to have to be braggadocious. But all of everything that I have shows everybody what they need to know. That's it. And there's a lot of good people I've been on podcasts with. They're good people, and I still go on podcasts with them. All right? Not saying I'm the only person that you got to listen to, but I build you a solid foundation to stand on. You won't be wavering daily. When you see something, you'll be like, oh yeah, baby, I love that. Heck yeah, let's go. It's all part of the plan. Presidential emergency action documents are pre-planned. When you have a continuity of government invoked, you have a presidential emergency action document. They're pre-planned. All right? And President Trump's doing it. You can't say Trump was right about everything, and you shouldn't say Trump in the first place. Let him do that. He's President Trump. He's wartime president. He's Supreme Commander Trump. Lawful. All right? But when you see the term in the ball cap and the shirt, Trump was right about everything, you can't say that if you don't believe that. Or you shouldn't say that if you don't believe that. The only way he can be right about everything is lawfully. Because he has all the laws invoked right now that makes him a wartime president that allowed him to trap the swamp, trap the enemy lawfully, trap the bureaucracy, trap the deep state bureaucrats. And that's what's taking place. If it wasn't, where's Obama? Where are Bill, Hillary? Why aren't they free roaming? Why aren't they out there just rallying left and right and rallying up all these Democrats in these infested cities out there? Where are their heroes? If they were free to roam, they should be able to do what? Rally, campaign, rally all their people. Social media, if people are saying, oh, well, they're on social media, they tweeted it. Anybody can be running that social media. And they are. It's not them. All right? So the only way to exonerate President Trump is when we get out of a full continuity government, it's going to do that. And he's going to do what? He's going to fully end all these national emergencies. He's going to fully take care of all these things that bureaucrats left open all these years. That's why it's important to know that Iran, in 1979, executive order with a national emergency, it's got to be ended. It's got to be taken care of. But he didn't start the war. He got Israel to go in there. They're bombing the hell out of these nuclear facilities. You should be terrified what Iran built up all these years. That's why he started hammering the Obama Iranian deal, all right, from the very beginning. said it's atrocious, it's terrible, it's disastrous. All right, and then all the people we exchanged for that and gave up all these different people who we had hostage and all these other things. All right, Obama. All right, so you got to know these things, but they can't just stop them either. They have to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what the world's going to look like from here out. That's why the Indo-Pacific Agreement of 2019 said every nation will be sovereign, independent on their own. All right, but we had all these executive orders open and bureaucrats promised all these people for years, so President Trump's having to go in there and clean things up, clean things up, clean things up. So they're getting other nations. They got Russia to go into Ukraine and take out all the U.S. biolabs that the U.S. Department of Defense was funding in 2004. All right, that's what's been going on there. Same thing with Israel going into Iran. You should be terrified what Iran had saved up. See, all the nations that they had running bureaucracy with all these years were the ones building up. And then you had Bush starting bull crap like 9/11, which is going to be unveiled. There's already a Supreme Court docket case ready to roll with that. 23-939, Donald J. Trump versus United States government. All right, that's going to open a massive can of worms on 9/11, Obama, Gaddafi, and Hillary. It's already there. See, if you know these things, this is why patriots, quote unquote, certain patriots look atrocious right now. It's why certain Republican, quote unquote, and conservative, quote unquote, and patriot, quote unquote, platforms look atrocious right now with all their surface level propaganda bullcrap when there's already a plan there. And I know some of these people. I message them all. I'm like, why are you doing this surface level propaganda? You're misleading so many Americans. You're misleading them. The comment boxes, people just hungry and eager, more than likely, but they're just commenting like all these different negative comments and all these other things. And it's a surface level propaganda when there's already answer in place, especially if you're a President Trump supporter and a military supporter. There's already clear evidence, blueprint, shell that outlines everything. And I'm not going to stop fighting for it. That's exactly what my role and duty has been put in task to me, is to show people that. And it doesn't matter what resistance is there. A lot of the resistance is just ignorance, and they can be educated if they shut up long enough and listen. All right, but some of it is looking atrocious. All right, and don't be surprised if some of these platforms start disappearing. They're going to have to. They're going to have to delete some of these people. They're going to have to bar them. They got to. You can't have people out there just writing what they want to with thousands and millions of followers. It's atrocious. It's atrocious for the military, all service members, but especially what's going on right now for President Trump. And, he's safe. He's secure. Everything's been planned. You ain't got to worry about anything. There's nothing to fear. Everything's been taken care of. That dash right there shows it was pre-planned. The whole thing is pre-planned. Every bit of it's pre-planned. All right, what you're witnessing, it's all been planned. Every aspect under that is planned because you're in a military occupation, you're in a continuity government. You're not in a regular form of government. Jonhson told you that. Mike told you I'm a wartime speaker. I don't have a regular schedule. If he was a Speaker of the House in a constitutional government without a continuity government military occupation, he would have a regular schedule. And you would see Congress. You would see Congress meeting, but you don't. So you will see President Trump exonerated. In order to move forward in the future and maintain and sustain what all we've been through, there will be a full-fledged revelation and revealing of what is taking place. The only way we can do it. So you need to hang tight. Don't panic daily. Know the laws and orders. Know the laws and orders. If you panic, frustrated, whatever it is, come back to my page. Find something to read and study. Find something to read and study. And I'm going to be doing this weekly as I always do and daily as much as possible. But it's all right here. All tip of the spear. All right? That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Until you have a foundation of what President Trump and the military is working with, and it's all lawful, all constitutional, that's all you need to know. So this right here, all this proves, again, with your continuity government executive order, your presidential emergency action documents, and also all the executive orders within that under the Democratic introduced Section 1550, which is the last amendment to the War Powers Act, and then quote-unquote Joe relinquishing his power to the president of that, which is President Trump. It all shows you right there. Your 2017 to 2021 was a resetting of the legislative. Your 2021 to 2025 was resetting of the executive, and right now you're witnessing the resetting of the judicial branch. 2025 to 2029. That's why you're here. Judge this, judge that, judge this, judge, all over the media. It's all that. All throughout 2017 to 2021 was legislative this, law, everything. 2021 to 2025. That's why so many discrepancies were there with quote-unquote Joe. All right? And nothing seemed real. Everybody's like, what's going on? What's happening? Well, that's why the good Lord put me on the map in 2022. Because so many people were struggling with 2020 and 2021. And then boom, finally. And God used my documents, people to read the documents. And then God allowed me to sign my publicity contract for my birthday at Trump International with President Trump president. I was the only person, still the only person that I know of that's been allowed to sit at his chair, in his chair, at his reserved table. People that are invited to his table can sit there, but I sat in his chair. I signed my publicity contract that put me on radio, and it allowed me to write these books. Independent, no publisher, no ghostwriter. All of the laws and orders more than clearly outline special operations, continuity government, military operation, unconventional warfare, clandestine operations, covert operations, puppet government, continuity government. It's all there. You got to know that. So for all the liberals, be sure to tag a liberal. Let them have it on here. And when I tag it on X, let them have it. Add a liberal. Like find a liberal page and add them and just keep adding them. And say educate yourself. Educate yourself because you all look atrocious right now. Everything's been done lawfully. And the military are not taking unlawful orders whatsoever. They need to know that. Title 10. So, again, I'll be back on here. Let's see, today's Sunday. So I'll be back on here probably midweek, depending on what's going on, because it probably will be rapid fire from here out as we move closer. But you'll find me on other podcasts. Make sure you're following the right pages. There's a lot of fake pages out there. I will never contact you. I don't tell you to personally message me. I don't talk about QFS wallets and all that other bull crap. I don't talk about Bitcoin. I don't talk about crypto. I don't talk about any of that stuff. That's not what I'm tasked to do first off, but that's also not my wheelhouse. I don't talk about any of that stuff. That's people who are frauds, who are looking to make money off of you. The only thing I have are these books that are the #1 bestsellers. All right, The Midnight Rider. This tells the whole operation. You see how big it is. All right, that's how big they are right there. Part 1, Part 2. And then you can get those on rattletrap1776.com if you want me to sign them. Same thing with this. I'm the first in country music history to unveil all the secret society and how this ties into the deep state, the major record labels and all those turds up there. It's not about talent. I've had Billboard hits, country airplay hits, which is the only chart that the labels score their hits from. All those are rattletrap1776.com, RATTLETRAP1776.com. Click on Get More Gear, sends you over to the page. Click Shop All, and then it shows you everything. So if I'm a grifter, then the rest of all the music world are grifters, and all the authors out there are grifters. And President Trump just signed an executive order to protect all the grifters, all the creators of art and work and songs and etc. So you got to disregard all that jealous haters and the idiots out there. But that's all I do. I got some cool merchandise. I'm the one that established the Dash Matters because it does. That's what President Trump is, the Dash. So I have some cool gear there. And then I have these books. That's all I have are the books and the cool merchandise. DerekJohnsonCountry.com. DerekJohnsonCountry. DerekJohnsonCountry.com. You'll find my contact information there to my management and everything like that. So that's where you'll find my music. And you'll be able to separate that. And then my link tree, LINKRTR period. That's where the little period goes if you're typing it in your phone or your laptop. LINKTR period EE /1776 Nation, 1776 Nation. All right. So there's a lot of fraud pages out there, like the 1776 Nation. They try to copy that, just like the idiots 2 years ago that tried to steal it and got busted for it. But the link tree will put you on the right pages. And just like my Instagram now has a blue check, and my X has a blue check. So make sure you find my blue check accounts and then see me validate what pages are mine with my link tree. That's how you know you're following the correct page or not. So there's a lot of people who are screen recording these and putting it up, making it look like it's the same page. It's not. You got to make sure that. LINKTR period EE /1776 Nation pulls up all my accounts. And so if you're international, you can't get the book through me. You have to go to Amazon. If you want it for a birthday and it's like, last second or Christmas or whatever, some kind of, something like that, specialty, probably best to go through Amazon. Because I am a one-man show over here with a couple of people who volunteer with the books. Matter of fact, when I get done with this, I'm going to be signing a bunch of books tonight. So just a small team here. So I love doing this. I appreciate all the real patriots out there who have blessed me to be able to do this and go around the nation and talk. And I love doing it. I'm keeping my oath by the standard of the oath and what the oath actually reads, and showing everybody the laws and orders that are current and vote right now. And it's been a blessing. I love all the real patriots. I truly am not a guy who likes to look like I'm attacking somebody like earlier in this podcast. But there are a lot of lost people right now, and it's disappointing. As a veteran who knows I serve for the right reasons, and you already have to deal with idiots and resistors, all right, that are real resistance, all right. But then when you look just the same, it's disappointing when there's a clear blueprint in place that helps people, gives them peace, comfort, and solace. I mean, we've had people try to commit suicide over this stuff. We've had people who have gotten so depressed with their finances, didn't think there was going to ever be a change in this, didn't think that anything was taking place, and we're just in the same old. No, we're not. We're in a unique military operation by laws and orders. And when conservatives, Republicans, and patriots are replicating the deep state, rhinos, days of old, and also looking like liberals, then you got to hear the rattle trap rattle. You're gonna hear the rattle, and you're gonna get the strike, and that's how that happens. And I'm not a cocky person. People who met me know this, but someone has to be the one to stand tall, stand firm, and stand consistent with the truth. And the only way you find truth are the applications of it. The old saying, "Knowledge is power." No, it's not. It's the application of knowledge that's power. It's not knowledge itself. You can have knowledge all day long, but if you don't know how to apply it, it's the same thing with vocal coaches. A lot of vocal coaches show you how to use your vocals, but they never show you how to apply it to a song. All right, so it's atrocious out there where we are to have so many platforms misleading a lot of Americans. All right, and someone has to stand tall, stand firm, stand in truth, and stand on the foundation. I know that foundation like the back of my eyelids, and God, but also all the people with the DOD and all the different people who have confirmed to put me in this position, doing what I'm doing. They wouldn't have done this for no other reason. All right, so I can tote the weight, I can tote the news, and I haven't been compromised and I haven't been bought out. All right, whatsoever. That's why you still see boots, buckle, same old dude, backgrounds, natural backgrounds. All right, do you see sponsors all over my page? You see me constantly trying to sell something? No, you don't. All right, I don't even share shirts and the books as often as even some of my family tells me to, because people are always asking where to get the books. I don't drop the link on there all the time. All right, so that's just kind of the person I am. So when I see people out there, I'm going to strike, because this is what the oath looks like. It's exactly what the oath looks like. Beyond service. The oath never expires. All right, and we have people to save. We have Americans to save. And even liberals who are willing to listen, you got to want to save them too. You never leave a fallen comrade. All right, no matter how much they're spitting, cussing, kicking, and all these other things, you try to save them as much as possible. Look at Forrest Gump. I know a lot of people, it's a great movie. People think it's, whatever, funny and whatnot, but also you got to look at the seriousness of it. When you see Forrest go back into the jungle, and old Lieutenant Dan didn't want him to save him. Leave me here, cussing and all these things. And it wasn't rosy and it wasn't perfect in the movie. Even though it's a movie, you got to look at the real life of it. When he saved him, it wasn't rosy after that. It wasn't perfect after that. He had all kinds of trauma and all kinds of bumps and all kinds of this. But when he jumped off the ship, when he was up there on that ship, you call this a storm? I'll show you. And then old Forrest said what? I think he found his peace with God. And after that, it was tranquility. And then he left off for a little while. And then when old Forrest had his wedding, and people laugh about it, make it, he's about his, you got some legs, Lieutenant Dan? And they pulled up, yeah, titanium, baby. Right? It is funny. But then bring back the seriousness to it. The seriousness was he had a beautiful woman on his arm that he was dating. He had a set of legs. He had a life. All right? And he wouldn't have had that life if Forrest hadn't gone back in the jungle and rescued him. All right? And I know a story of a soldier who went back in to save his buddy. And when he got there, the soldier, first, before he got there, his command said, don't go back in there, you're going to get yourself killed. You're going to get yourself killed. And he still went back. And when he got there, and he got back to the trenches, he was dead. And his command said, you idiot, you fool, I told you he'd be dead, and you are stupid for going back. You could have had yourself killed. And he said, no, sir. He's like, when I got back to him, he said, I knew you'd come back after me. I knew you'd come back for me. And so we got to hear his last words. All right, so, little things like that, and that's a well-known story out there, but there's plenty of stories like that. I could tell a lot more other stories of different people that I know in service and different things like that, but that's what it's all about. All right, and that's what we got to do in the future. To maintain and sustain this, we have to have accountability. We have to have responsibility. We have to have transparency. We have to have honesty. But we have to have communication. All right? And the only way we can get through all this stuff is there's going to have to be some revelations. And you're going to see that. All right? But you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be fearful. All right? First off, if you believe in God, then it's already taken care of. It's already written. All right, but that don't mean you're not supposed to fight for it. It's not supposed to mean that you're supposed to sit back and go, God wins. You hear people say that all the time, God wins. No, God wants you to fight for His kingdom too. It's all biblical. You don't just sit back and say, oh, well, God wins. No, you got to fight for it too. But there's an appropriate way to fight right now. You need to know the laws and the orders. You know how to make that applicable to your friends and family out there. And if you can't repeat it like me, most people can't, I get it. You still got to show them. You got to say, hey, share this link, share this link, share this link. Whatever you got to do, bring them over here. I'm not always sitting here, you get this, here's this cream for your face right here, and this butt cream here, and it'll make your butt feel good, and all this other stuff, and you sit on it all day long, you ain't reading laws and orders like you should. This butt cream sure will help. You don't see me doing that, so you can trust me. You've been sitting here for 3 years almost. August will be 3 years, all right, that I've been here, all right, doing exactly this, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly now, and will continue to. We got a nation to save, but we got to save it appropriately and accordingly. All right, and we're under a certain kind of unique laws and orders right now, and that's what you need to know. All right, all this other stuff is just noise, drama, and propaganda. And the way we maintain and sustain it is setting that foundation, knowing that foundation, accountability, responsibility, transparency, honesty, but communication. One of your key components there. Listening, not hearing. All right, so there's a lot of things that we have to do right now, and that's why when people message me all the time, what can I do, what can I do? Well, this is where we are right now. We still have a lot of people who need saving out there that need to know what's been going on, all right, and get caught up where we are. And so you got to give them that foundation. You got to give them that opportunity to do so. All right, don't just write them off. Don't do that. Fight for them. All right, no matter what they're saying to you, if they're kicking you, cussing, whatever, virtually kicking you, whatever, hey, Smile and be like, hey, no matter what you say to me, it don't change the laws and orders. No matter what you call me, it don't change the laws and orders. No matter what you do, it don't change the laws and orders. All right? Have that warrior mentality. Have that spirit. Have that passion. If you love this nation, that's how you be a patriot in this nation. All right? That's how you compliment President Trump. That's how you compliment the military, the current active duty especially, and all the National Guard and reserves, even on active and also still in national and reserve component capacity. All right? That's how you compliment that. All right, you don't give up. You keep fighting. You have passion. You have to kick a little sometimes. Old Little Texas song, the 90s band, Little Texas. Sometimes you got to kick a little to cause a stir. Sometimes you got to make some noise to be heard, like I did early in the podcast. All right, I'm just, the negative attitudes towards my positive butt kicking attitude is also, come on, it's not necessary. All right, I'm not being negative. I'm not talking down to all of you. I'm saying we got to fight right now in another kind of capacity. Everything is taken care of, absolutely, but we have to fight on the levels of which we have to fight at. And that is legislation right now showing all these people out there that no, this is constitutional. No, that's not an unlawful order. Here it is right here. So we have to try to get them to see the light. All right, no matter what. And then let God take care of the rest. So you do everything you can in your power, and then let God take care of the rest. Don't flip that equation around. You don't think that God's going to take care of everything, and then I'll do my little part here. No, you fight in the right kind of ways, and then God will take care of the rest. If it's someone who just don't want to come aboard, okay, all right, but you got to show them, because some of them just don't know that they don't know, and when you show them that they don't know that they don't know. Most of them probably will go over here in their house and read it and go, oh my gosh, I've been saying this, and this, and I look like an idiot. They may not come to you and say, oh my gosh, I look, but you'll see them. They'll slip around and they'll start saying certain things. And you'll be like, you weren't saying that a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, a year ago. Or they'll go into their hole and then they'll do what we also need them to do. Quit running their traps out there and quit looking atrocious in another way because of the people who may be seeing that. All right? So everybody has a way to be a light. Everybody has a way to be a mouth. But we need the right kind of mouths wagging right now, not the wrong ones. So that's why it's important to know what the liberals are doing right now are atrocious. This no Keynes bullcrap. They don't know anything about the foundation, anything about the laws, anything about the orders, especially military, Title 10, authority, all constitutional, what's going on with the National Guard, with the reserves, and with the Marine Corps and all the others that might be involved visually in the future, no matter what it is. All right? There will be a revelation. Don't worry about that. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the show. If you know what you're supposed to be doing right now, you won't get fretful. You won't get tired. You won't get weary. There will be a revelation. History will exonerate President Donald John Trump. History will unveil what the dash exactly is and everything. It's going to have to. In order to leave all the past that we've been through, the bureaucracy, the mudslinging, the dogfighting, the cussing, the hatred, the ridicule, all that, it's going to have to. And they didn't do this, and we didn't do this, the military, no one did all this just to go back to that same cycle. And the only way you get out of that cycle is to unveil win. No more deep state, no more bureaucracy, but also when all that is set up, then you can have justice. Because we need as many people as possible on board to see the win. And the ones who are shut up and got ostracized and all of a sudden, oh crap, I said something way too soon. See, so all these people are going to do that, and then you hit them with justice. Then people will appreciate it. Even if it's just them sulking in their house over here, you're going to know because they're going to get quiet. All right, a lot of them are already quiet. A lot of you who follow me know that the people who were resistant to me 2 and 3 years ago, they're quiet now. You don't see them anymore. They're quiet. So they're over there sulking in their misery for being stupid and foolish and ignorant. All right, so now all of a sudden, it's the same thing's going to happen out there with all the people. So just give it a little time, but that don't mean that you sit on your thumb and wait either. All right? Some of them can be saved right now. Try to save them. All right? Tag them on these videos. Tag them. Let them have it.